Hello, good morning. There you are. Hi. Well, welcome to our first annual Active Aging Summit. Yay! Thank you so much for being here this morning. I am really excited to listen to our presenters this morning, as I'm sure you are. We have a great lineup, and I know that you got some awesome goodies already out in the lobby this morning, and they will be there afterwards as well. And there'll be I guess we would call it a light lunch. Will be catered out in the lobby afterwards, so you can stick around and mingle and chit chat, and maybe you can catch a couple of our presenters afterwards as well and ask questions. Including if you wanted to grab a couple extra handouts from this morning that you took on your way in, they are on the table out in the lobby. And those handouts you can give to other family or friends who couldn't be here this morning. So please don't hesitate to share the knowledge with all your friends and family and neighbors and whomever else you want to hand them to. So I am Jamie Teague, and I'm the director of the Over 60 and Active Aging program, and I'm so thrilled. Such a wonderful, wonderful group of people and individuals of all ages that I get to work with. And I first would like to say thank you to our instructors, and those instructors who are here this morning, please stand up. There you are. Yay, they deserve a big round of applause. They do a lot for you. Yes, they do a lot for you. So thank you for being here this morning. I'd like to start off by introducing our first presenter, and it is Miss Jan Mitleiter. Woohoo! So Jan is not only a fantastic role model and mentor for me, she's been there from the first day that I started as an instructor at CSI at the age of 23. So Jan has always been there and helped and guided me. And what's kind of crazy, it's been a full circle that she is now back helping me again in directing and trying to figure out how to navigate this new role as a director. So thank you so much, Jan. Jan is a CSI Professor of Emeritus, and she is the founder of this wonderful program, the Over 60 and Getting Fit program. She is also the co-founder of Idaho's Fit and Fall Proof program, and currently she is a trustee on the CSI board. So I'd like to welcome Jan Mitleiter.
Thank you, girl. Good morning, everybody. Can you hear me okay? Okay, great. You know, I grew up with 4 brothers, and they said, you are 3/4 legs and the other 4th mouth. It's really a pleasure for me to be here today and welcome you after we have been lingering for so long out of the pandemic. So when I say it's really a pleasure to be here, it's actually a pleasure to be anywhere and be connected with people again. I have the distinct opportunity to tell you that I started in this college at 1970, and I borrowed a red-hot Carmagia convertible from a boyfriend that is long gone. I wonder what happened to him, but I borrowed his Carmagia to accept an invitation to try out for this first physical education position with the College of Southern Idaho, with its founder, Dr. James Taylor. And I found that he was absolutely charming. Who goes to an interview and he spends the entire afternoon selling you on Twin Falls? And even though I'm an Idaho native, I had never been to Twin Falls before. And he spent time talking about the buildings and the things that were going to happen in this facility. In fact, it was so long ago that we donned hard hats to go through the gymnasium as it was finished, and he said, finished, and he said, as only he could. Now, next year, Jan, we're on the north side, we're going to build a swimming pool. And I'm thinking, I could drown in a deep bathtub. I hate water. I'm afraid of water. I hardly passed the swimming program. And I thought, I will be here 1 year. But he never built the swimming pool, and I never left. And so as a result of that, I have had the opportunity to work with or for every college president in the existence of this institution. And I can tell you that each one of those presidents brought a specific set of skills that were particularly important for the time they served. And that is certainly the case for our new president, who's only been here a couple of years, came during the pandemic from Oklahoma, as did Doc Taylor. In fact, when he saw our tower out, he said, "That is the same tower at the college where I served for many years." Isn't that something? At any rate, they all served and they all have specific skills. And so I just want to give you a couple of things that are happening now at the College of Southern Idaho that you may not have an opportunity to know about. One of the things that's happening in colleges is that there is a decline or a change in enrollment. In fact, some of the community colleges in Nevada are down by 40%, but the College of Southern Idaho is actually up in enrollment. And there are a number of reasons why. There are so many more choices. There's easier registration, there's early college, there's bridge programs, there's flex time, there's late start, all kinds of things that have become much more student-centered. And so it is possible for people, if they plan well, and to the relief of their parents are thinking, how in the world are they going to pay for college? It is possible for students to graduate from high school and at the same time earn an associate's degree from the College of Southern Idaho. And that is really terrific. A second thing that makes us really special is that we are the only institution in the state of Idaho that has now qualified as a Hispanic serving institution. And that means that we have at least 25% of our total enrollment is now Hispanic. And why is that important besides the fact that we want to be serving all target audiences from the cradle to the grave? Aren't you glad we still have that grave in there? At any rate, we want to serve everyone, and the reason for that is that we can qualify now for much more federal funding that will serve all students. Last week, this college got a $2.5 million grant that is going to encourage the go-on rate, because as you know, Idaho students, a very high percentage of Idaho students do not go on. And this $2.5 million is going to help us serve all students, not just Hispanic students, but all students, so they can realize their dreams. That's really exciting. And those of you that take classes in the local gym, you are sharing that space with athletes. Many of you go to see the games. Many of you know that they are nationally ranked. In fact, the girls cross-country team is #1 in the nation among community colleges right this week. What you may not know, yes, it's really exciting. What you may not know is that the department and the college wants them to be students first and athletes second. And that is very unusual in colleges where the competition is very stiff. And although all of our programs do operate and are good enough to be at the national level, have won their share of national awards, it is interesting to know from my perspective as a longtime educator that every single one of these teams last semester had a 3.2 GPA average or higher. That just doesn't happen. And that goes to show you some of the magic that appears here at the College of Southern Idaho, the gold standard that we're always trying to achieve. And I'm quick to say that I think the College of Southern Idaho is the best thing that's happened to Magic Valley since irrigation. And all of these, it is. And even though we've come through a pandemic where we have had staff having to learn new skills and put in extra time and really go through very difficult times, as we all have, they have done that at the same time achieving some tremendous things. The third thing I just want to mention is that I want to give you a hearty thank you. For those of you that have been in the Over 60 program for years know that we have been very active gifters to the foundation, not only to support the program in the Give Something Back, which still exists, that it has become one of the best contributors in the foundation through over the years. So thank you for your generation, for your generosity. Not only does it help support things that happen in the active aging or the over 60 program with instruction and equipment. As you saw recently, they added some wonderful benches around the campus so that if you're walking outside and using the campus as a park-like atmosphere, then there's a place to rest, or there's a place to stretch, or there's a place to tie your shoes. And so that's been a wonderful new addition. What you might not know about that foundation, that it's ranked as in the top 10% in the country among community college foundations. And that is really a special thing. You also may not know that last year they gave over $2 million out in scholarships, and 42% of those students were first-generation college students. So that means that very often those are the same students that would not have an opportunity for higher education, but it begins a process in families that generate all kinds of productive new possibilities. And so thank you for that generosity. I can tell you too that there have been members of this class that not only contributed generously to the Give Something Back, but they saw that this was an opportunity for them to sponsor students that they cared about from their community. And so I like it for my own personal gifting, because all of the money that you gift to the foundation goes to the intended purpose and doesn't spend a lot of time or monies supporting the administration of that. So thank you for all you have done. During our brief time together, we're going to look briefly at the over 60 early start. I see that there are a few people here who have been a part of that program, and it's so wonderful to see your faces. There's also going to be just a mention of some of the lessons that I have learned, because I started at a very young age, very inexperienced, and knew nothing about growing older. And there were actually very few role models or resources about fitness programs at that particular time, 1977, as a matter of fact. There were very few resources beyond the Jack LaLanne reruns. If you're old enough, you may remember that, and one of them was he was pulling a tugboat to prove that he was really very, very fit. He was pulling a tugboat in the San Francisco Bay. Well, obviously, that wasn't something that we were going to be using. And there also was an attitude. There was an attitude that aging was really kind of a downhill skid. And moving into disability, there wasn't many options, and that was really deflating. And so we're also going to be spending some time on encouraging you to snack more between meals. And I'm talking more about exercise snacking and why that becomes incredibly important for all of us. But first of all, I have a question for you. How old are you? If you did not know how old you are, how old would you be? How many people would be older? How many are pleased right where you are? How many would love to be a little younger? It is always the same case. No matter who you are or where you come from, aging is a shared common experience. It's inevitable to all of us if we have the good fortune to live a long life. The idea of living a long life appeals to everyone, but the idea of getting old doesn't appeal to anyone. When someone asks you, how are you? You may reply, fine, but don't ask for any details. Or perhaps this has happened to you, as it did to me. Once I was looking over a crowd of people. It was actually in a room here on the campus. I was looking over the crowd of people, and I noticed this tall, older, bald guy over in the corner. I did a startled retake. Oh, I'm married to him. What happened? And it happened so quickly. So we joke about our anxiety about things. Do you know there are a simplified version of what the life stages are? 1, you believe in Santa Claus. 2, you don't believe in Santa Claus. 3, you are Santa Claus. 4, you look like Santa Claus. Do you realize that the only time in our lives when we like to get older is when we're kids? If you're less than 10 years old, you are so excited about aging that you think in fractions. How old are you? I asked my youngest granddaughter, Denali. She says, I am 3, going on 3 and a half. She's very smart, you see. Very recently, we were playing in the neighbor's yard, and she wanted to get up in this tree that was just a little bit taller than what she could reach, and to join her brother, who is 5. And so he said, Grandjan, will you help me get up in the tree? So I came over, gave her this lift into the tree. She climbed in. There was a little boy there visiting, about the same age as she. He's up there reaching. Finally, he goes over to the deck, pulls this ice chest as he's trying to put the ice chest underneath the tree so he can step up and grab in and come into the tree. And Denali, age 3, said, that will never work. When I need help, I ask my grandmothers. She's a very smart girl, but will I say that when she's 13, going on 16? You jump a few ahead when you're a teenager. 21 is the magical number. You are pushing 40 before you know it. Then the years run together and you pick up some steam. If you have the good fortune to get to 70 and your definition of essentials change, like pulling an all-nighter is not getting up in the middle of the night to pee, then a strange thing happens. If you make it to near 100, you are a kid again, and you may count your age in fractions. You may remember Dorothy Custer, who grew up in the Magic Valley, and she lived to be 104. She was once a member of the over 60 class. And when I asked her, we followed one another, and I asked her, what is the advantage of being 100? She immediately said, well, there's no peer pressure. But the truth is there's getting to be more and more peer pressure as more and more people are reaching that 100 mark and beyond. She and I did a training together at the local health department. We were introducing those weighted balls to peer leaders for fall prevention classes. And this was really a special thing because as we were doing a gentle little workout for the very first time, Dorothy was playing her harmonica as background music. Is that wonderful? I knew it was a moment to have a 100-year-old musician playing live music while we were slowly working out with the weighted balls. Her advice was that day, never eat lunch before you play the harmonica. And the second piece of advice that she gave that applies to all of us, I've never lived my life defined by age. And that's great advice for us at every stage. So when you're thinking about the Over 60 program, it actually started in 1977 as a community education Friday afternoon yoga class in a downtown warehouse. We had very few options here on campus. I was, as I mentioned, very young, inexperienced, with very few resources. In fact, it's a wonder I even came into physical education because I was part of the era that played sports before Title IX. And if you wanted to play volleyball, you baked cookies to sell the cookies so that you would have gas money to go to a play day. Oh, we've come such a long way, and thank goodness we have. We have a little bit further yet to go. As I mentioned to you too, a common attitude painted old age as a downhill skid into decline, disability, dependence, and even death. That gentle yoga class evolved into a chair fitness class where we lifted soup cans. And even as a young person, I was saying to myself, these older people are capable of doing far more. And then some very interesting research by William Evans came out where he had gone with his team into a care center and started a weightlifting class for people that were warehousing in this care center. And they found within a very short period of time, 10 weeks as a matter of fact, that people developed strength. They developed vitality. They were casting aside canes and crutches and walking on their own to the dining room. All this vitality happened, and that sort of changed what we thought about what older people could do. I went to his workshop. We ramped up our activities. We moved from the side of the gymnasium onto the gym floor. We started incorporating partnerships with schools and rec centers, and that's what you're seeing. Even the first active aging class was training for a walking half marathon in Las Vegas. Who goes to Vegas to walk? But we did. We did, and the good news is that our group of about 12 people finished the 13 miles against a very strong wind. The even better news is that none of our students were in the porta potties when the wind blew them over. Although aging, as we know, is not for sissies, we have come a long ways as we look at new opportunities for elongating our prime time. Today, there is data from multiple credible sources that supports that we have much more prime time by improving our habits in stress management, diet, physical activity, sleep, and brain health. Dr. Michael Rosen from the Cleveland Clinic says that in his new book, just out, called Reboot Your Age, he says, within a decade, people who live in their 90s can feel like their 40s, thanks to rapid changes in the longevity field. Well, we will see, because there are so many so-called anti-aging hocus-pocus programs out there that really separate you from your money and little else. But here are 5 things. You know, as the years rolled by, I noticed that there were some common themes in the characteristics of students who seemed to age better than others. The program became an informal laboratory for me, and I actually consider that to be an extremely important gift, one of my most important life's gifts, because it gave me some things that I could use as a roadmap for my own aging that I have to admit occurred sooner than I was expecting. And so here are 5 things that I notice about the lessons. First of all, the physical deterioration long attributed to the aging process has much more to do with physical inactivity than it does with aging itself. It is more important now that we are older or seasoned adults to be using exercise as a major part of our life, even in comparison to the time when we were younger, raising families, managing a home, and working. It's an insurance policy that pays off so that we can play with grandchildren. We can garden back free. We can walk the canyon trail without our joints talking back at us. It's an opportunity for us to build a medley of resiliency skills as we transition from one life stage into another. We all know this, but we need reminders attached to what we care about and this opportunity to move more and sit less, because we have been coming out of the pandemic, that lingering pandemic, where we have found, and the data is beginning to show that where we have sat much more, including myself, and we have been moving less. So there's a wonderful person that was a part of my life for many years at the Over 60 program. He came when I first came myself. And his name is Buell. At the age of 70, he came out to try out for the track team after recovering from a near-fatal disease. During the next 20 years, he sometimes used the Over 60 program as his warm-up before he went out to hit the track and field. He actually, in that process, won 15 national and world records and counted the years past 70 as the very best of his life. He came to class on the very day that he died, 2 weeks before his 95th birthday. He lost his keys, so after the class, I took him home, and on that short ride home, we had this wonderful conversation about friendship. Little did I realize that that late afternoon, he settled into a chair while his Meals on Wheels meal was warming in the oven and quietly died. Is there a better gift to live long and live well and die short? Another experience was Betty, and she and her husband were discussing a move into assisted care when they joined the class in Buell. They got much stronger. They got much more hopeful. She developed quite a bit of confidence. And instead of moving into assisted care, she went to Europe with me in the walking through Tuscany 18 years ago, one of our yearly trips across the pond. A second thing that I learned is that chronological age may be very different from functional age. In a data-supported senior fitness testing that we actually did in this program years ago, we followed some of the members in various in various towns, 7 different senior fitness tests, and then 10 weeks later, we tested again, and we found that those people that were in their 80s tested as if they were excellent in their 60s. And it's interesting to note that there is a lot of data indicating that if people stay very active and socially connected in their aging process, that they may actually reduce their chronological age and be much younger from a functional age. So when somebody asks how old you ask them that you need more information before you can say that. You may have reason to say, oh, I may be 75, but parts of me are much younger. I just hope it's the right parts. But at any rate, the third thing that I want to say is that as you become more physically active, you become stronger and more stable. Your energy spills out into every aspect of your life. New possibilities in a program like Over 60 and Active Aging adds purpose where you can see yourself as a vital part of a much larger whole. That class became a Grand Central station for community volunteers. We were a conduit for people who needed volunteers in the public library, a conduit for many people who volunteered at the Academic Development Center. When other organizations in town needed volunteers, they would contact us and we could send out a bevy of volunteers. We found that there were people that were entering senior masters, mostly track and field events, or they signed up for local walks, or they added coffee and conversation groups they did not have before. We even had a few marriages. It was such a thrill to be partly a matchmaker in this endeavor. I can remember Al coming with his hand against this woman that looked like she was madly in love as a teenager. He said to me, "It took me a whole year to get the courage to tell her that I loved her." It was so sweet. Or I also remember Jim, who said, "I really don't like coming to your rinky-dink class where you do all that walking in a circle, but it's the best place to meet available women." Relationship issues, whether you're young or older, are always very tricky. Sally started wearing this bright lemon leotard with very tight leggings years before that was popular to do. And she was quite proud of herself, actually. And so Emily rushed in one day and said, "You must kick her out. Our husbands are not safe." It is not unusual for us to get much stronger and more resilient and pick up activities that we thought we had lost in the aging process. A fourth thing, the most important benefit may not be improved fitness. Instead, it may be the power of the social connectedness. The ritual of showing up regularly adds structure and consistency to one's schedule. The strong sense of community adds belonging and purpose. It's often a place where friendships become almost like families of choice. Edith was a great example. Edith buried her middle-aged son on a Monday and returned to class on Friday, not to exercise, but to feel the love and the support of the group. Dr. Rosen says in his book, he says it differently, if you're going to age well, you gotta have a purpose and you gotta have a posse. And as we age, we have to change the members of that posse because they may move away, they may pass away, they may no longer have the same interests as you. Your family may be living in a different part of the country. So it becomes very important for you to surround yourself with members of the posse that will support you through thick and thin. And being involved in these kinds of programs is one of the ways to do it. A fifth one is that attitude for students is different for people who age well. If you live a long life, you know that there's going to be plenty of heartbreak along the way. People who approach life with at least, and the obstacles that come with that, with a cautiously optimistic explanatory style, either by gift of personality or deliberate cultivation, fare better. It is not as simple as seeing the glass half full as opposed to half empty. These people know that eventually someone's going to have to wash that glass. And so it's much more complicated. But there are things like looking for the beauty in the simple things, finding pockets of joy in the chaos of the moment, looking at that door that's been closed for the open window, developing a sense of gratitude that may become one of our most important qualities, and it is a way to develop if you feel like you don't have enough gratitude. If you're in a cloud, it is possible to purposely develop that gratitude. I remember when my mother was dying at my house, and we would play the glad game every night, and said, what good thing happened today? And I remember one day, the only glad thing in a devastating period of time was looking at the window in the spring and seeing a tulip that had popped out of the snow and how vibrant those colors were. Even something as simple as that can be wonderful. Gratitude helps us see what is there instead of what is not. And it's an easier way to boost positive brain chemicals and produce some calming effects. You know, that Dorothy I was telling you about, she actually had a long history of looking on the bright side. One of the things that we would do in the early days is have celebrations at the very end. In addition to the food, we would sometimes bring talent. People would bring their quilting, their art projects, their woodworking. They did some amazing things, but her talent was being a stand-up comedian. So one day, in one of these celebrations, she showed up in a flapper dress with a boa, if you can imagine, and she did a wonderful joke after joke after joke. And you may remember that when she turned 100, she was a guest on Jay Leno's Tonight Show, and she brought the house down. He liked her so much that he invited her back, and she was proud to show you her picture in some of the cars with Jay Leno. That was not anything. She always looked at the bright side. In the early Twin Falls in the 20s, I saw this history book, and one of the pictures was young Dorothy Custer. She had entered the best beard contest, and here she was with this long gray beard, but she got kicked out because she was a fake. Regardless of these lessons that I just mentioned, one of the realities of getting older is the loss of balance and the risk of falling. There are many reasons for it. The sarcopenia, or muscle weakness, that actually begins sometime in your mid-30s, and often we don't realize that. It can be postponed if we're living an active, healthy lifestyle. But there are other reasons why we become much more at risk of falling. Medical conditions, side effects of prescription drugs, and as you take 3 or 4 prescription drugs, your risk for falling does increase. Changes in vision and reaction time, poor posture, and actual fear of falling. When we are afraid, we tend to do less as we create a deconditioning spiral downwards that reduces our physical abilities. It promotes social isolation, and it is one of the most modifiable threats to independence. Balance is a skill that improves with practice, and it deteriorates with too much sitting. And the data remains sobering for us as Idahoans. Falls are the leading cause of fatal and non-fatal injuries. Idaho has higher than the national average. Falls increased during the pandemic years in Idaho. A recent statistic that I just got from my friend who is in charge of fall prevention at the Idaho Department of Health and Welfare. Deaths from falls in the over age 65 population increased just in 2021 over deaths from car accidents for the first time in history. Usually falls happen at home, but small changes produce big benefits with a little practice that you can work in your everyday schedule. You don't have to say, oh, I've got to practice my fall prevention. No, you can actually work it in. And in just a few minutes, we're going to give you some examples from the sample that you got as a handout coming in. The other thing that you need to know is that even though we exercise 30 minutes to an hour a day, if we go home and spend much of our time sitting, then we qualify as the new term, an active couch potato. Too much sitting, even though we participate in a fitness class, the long-term sitting, which is more than 4 hours, may wipe out the benefits from the exercise sessions that affects many chronic conditions and inflammation in particular. So it becomes extremely important for us to break up periods of long-term sitting with small exercise snacks. And if we do even these small things, it can produce significant results. So I'd like to draw your attention to the handout that you got, right? It looks like this. Did everybody get one? And I would like to just simply say that these are only samples, and that it is certainly important that exercise is good, but not every exercise is good for every body. And so I am going to go through several of them, even in our cramped space, to just sort of give you a little smattering of exercise snacks that you might put into your everyday schedule. The Shake Up and Wake Up in Bed comes from a book called Better Balance for Life. And Carol Clemens, the author of that, says, the secret of youth is a long front body. So already you could add a snack before you even get out of bed by squirming and stretching and making yourself into a large X and reaching as far as you can possibly can. Even if you have a partner in bed, it can still work. And then bring your knees into your chest as an additional kind of stretch. So stretch it out and knees in. And then if you can, bring from your X, reach over. Notice that you're elongating that front part of your body, and you're reaching over as far as you can, elongating that and holding it up as long as 30 seconds, coming back in again, bringing those knees in, tucking them in, moving on over to the other side. That would be considered a snack that everyone can do. And for many of us say, well, you know, I like doing those things, but if I get down on the floor, I'm not sure I can get back up again. So the exercises that you might do for core strength or other kinds of stretching that you would typically do on the floor, you can do safely in your bed. And so for those of you that say, you know, I just don't like getting up because I'm so awkward and I'm afraid I might fall, or I just don't have the sufficient strength to do that, put those exercises as little snacks in your bed. The other thing that happens with falling is that we often have a forward head, or we are leaning forward, or we have this forward neck. And so I want to give you a posture shape up, or a prime your posture that you could do in your chair, and we're going to actually do that. So if you would sit with your feet comfortably apart and planted on the floor, and your spine is stretched tall, here's a couple of things that you might do that you can do at church. You can do it when you're sitting here. You can do it anywhere. When you're at the stoplight, just work it in. So first you'll start, now that you've got that spine stretched tall, you're going to hollow out your belly button or contract your abdominals. I like to say hollow out your belly button or make your pants loose. So that just kind of goes in nice and easy. Then you're going to take your shoulders, or your chest, and you're just going to lift it up slightly. Like you're quite proud of yourself, but you're not going to brag too much about it. And then you're taking your shoulders, and then you're going to roll them back and down, as if your shoulder blades were going to drip down into your back pockets. And then finally, you're going to squeeze those shoulder blades together against a pencil or a penny very, very gently. So let's go through that again, because that in itself is a way to help get rid of that forward head and that leaning forward, which also becomes a risk factor for falling. So here we are. We're stretching our spine tall. If we're borrowing that shake up and wake up advice from Carol, then we're also thinking about elongating that front part of your body. So tuck in your belly button, or hollow out your belly button, or make your pants loose, or tuck in your abdominals slightly. Then take your chest and lift it up just gently. Now take your shoulders and roll them back slightly and drop your shoulder blades into your back pocket. Don't you feel wonderful? And then very gently squeeze a penny or a pencil between your shoulder blades. Do that off and on throughout the day, and that can be a subtle little exercise snack that can be very helpful. The second one that I ran over is boosting better balance. And you can take a one-legged balance. Do you know that if you're going to your wellness checkup with your healthcare professional, you may see them add watching you stand on one foot for 10 seconds. What am I doing? For 10 seconds. And if you can't do that, then they think that maybe you need some coaching as far as your fall prevention is concerned. So take that one-legged stand and do it while you're brushing your teeth. If you feel like you need a little assistance, take your fingertips and give you a little help there, a little slight help, and brush your teeth until the time that you can actually do that without any help. or you can use it up above it if you need the help. Here it is. If you're in the grocery store land and you're holding on to your cart, stand on one foot, then stand on the other foot. When you're pumping gas, you can stand on one. I do it all the time. Nobody cares how you look or what people think of you. Eleanor Roosevelt said, if you realized how little they did, you wouldn't worry about it at all. But at any rate, try that. Work it into your everyday life. As you go into your kitchen and the door frame, hang on, do your balance. If you need help, then grab onto the door frame so you don't have the risk of falling. Work it in to what you're already doing. On the back side are other additional exercise snacks. If you're talking on the phone with your girlfriend, why not use that to do some slow motion walking? Now, as you're walking, if you're just walking regularly, that is fairly easy. But have you tried taking the walking and slow it down? Can you take 6 seconds to take one step? 6 seconds to take another step. And it becomes much harder than if you're just walking along. And that time in tension is actually going to do you more good. And as you're talking in your phone, one day I talked to my friends for 6 miles. We had a lot of problems to solve. And so you can work it in with what you're already doing, as opposed to sitting while you're talking on the phone. You can try that walking on your tiptoes. You can try that walking on your heels. You can try that walking going heel, toe, heel, toe, heel, toe, slowly. All of those things are going to contribute to your confidence as somebody that has better balance. You might look at sitting on the wall, which I am not going to talk about, but the kitchen counter can be another way for you to go ahead and do some stretching and even doing a partial plank that not only works on core strength, also important for balance, but it can be an easier way, a healthy way to still get in some very good working out at your kitchen cupboard. And so you can see you can just work these in. If you love a chair, you want to leave it often. I love that line. I made it up for a book, and it's just so good. If you love a chair, leave it often. When you are in your seat, and we won't do it, but I'll just show you. If you are sitting down in the chair, and if you go up and down, it's one thing. But if you can do that very slowly, so those muscles are time under tension, or they call it TUT, T-U-T, time under tension. If you can do it slowly, so you're taking your buttocks and lifting it down like a little feather, dropping on the seat, and then very slowly moving that back up again. If you can do that numerous times throughout your day, that is an effective exercise to strengthen your quadriceps. That stabilizes the knee, and it also works on the core strength, and it makes you more resilient as far as your potential for falls. Or leaving that chair and doing other things like getting a glass of water, or just doing a few little side steps. We don't do enough side stepping, and many of our falls are sideways as opposed to front or back. Things that you can work in as you leave that chair for a moment. Maybe you're watching television and you want to leave while the commercials are going. Have you noticed how long those commercials are? You can have a mini workout during a commercial. Or you notice that you can be a klutz at something. And this is for brain health. And we're going to do this little activity. If you can take an activity that you're comfortable with and add some kind of novelty or something where you really have to think about what you're doing, that's considered good for brain health. And so we're going to try this little klutzy thing and see what you think. So in your seat, if you could just sort of march, putting your heels up and down. And then as you do that, go ahead and turn the corners of your lips up in a fake smile. Because even if it's fake, it does change the brain chemistry so that you get a little feeling of well-being. So sometimes it's important to fake things. And so here we are. You're looking good. Now then, we're stopping that for a minute, and now we're going to do this brain exercise, and it is bop the jackrabbit. Bop the jackrabbit. This is the jackrabbit, so bring it up. And this is the bopper. And so now then, take a look at that. Now change it. Now change it. Now change it. So that adds novelty. So you're having to think about what you're doing, and you have to start slow, and then you pick it up. Now let's see if we put all of those things together. We are We are walking, our heels are coming up, we are walking. We've got our fake smile on, and now then we're gonna bop the jackrabbit. How are you doing? You're looking pretty good. Well, that's an example of being a klutz at something. Or learn to play racquetball, or pickleball, or learn to dance, or do the Zumba, or play with your grandchild where you're playing tag and you're having to react to something that is new and not predictable. That's what I mean about being a klutz at something. Or breathe with intention. If you could borrow a technique from babies where they naturally breathe from the diaphragm, imagine that you're breathing from your belly button, bringing it out and in. That can be a wonderful way for you to reduce tension and inspire a calming effect, because it does change. Deep breathing, even a few moments of it, can change that calming effect with brain chemistry. And so I would like to share with you my favorite breathing exercise where you actually use a movement with the breath, and it's called the heart breath. And we don't have a lot of space here, but we can just go ahead and do it. So on an incoming breath, I'd like to have you bring your hands up over the top of your head and bring your hands into the prayer position. And then as you exhale, you're going to bring it down into front of your chest. And then very gently inhale and reach it up toward the sky as high as you. Oh, you look so beautiful in this position. And you notice none of us have double chins at this point. And then exhale and then bring it back down again. Let's try it one more time together. So inhale and reach to the sky. Palms together. Exhale, ease it down. And inhale, reach it up to the sky, and exhale. Oh, that is so good. Wonderful when we're all together, too. So please use this handout as maybe a beginning of sample exercise snacks that you could incorporate into your everyday life so that you are sitting less and moving more. You may need to modify your intentions, certainly, to match the physical condition where you are. Life starts all over again when it gets crisp in the fall. It's a perfect time to not only make your recommitment to rituals and commitments and maybe honing habits that got a little shaky as a better, in an effort to have a better version of ourselves as we move more and sit less. Pay less attention to your number of birthdays. If you were 65 now, just consider that if the year had 14 or 15 months, you could be, instead of 12, you could be around 48. Or as Bob Dylan says, may you be forever young as late as possible. Thank you very much. So they take a break now?
Oh my gosh, isn't Jan fabulous? Oh yes, another round of applause, Jan. Thank you so much. She always fills my cup, makes me feel younger. Thank you so much. We are going to take a little break before we get started into our second presenter. Julie Ellis will be up next, so if you need to go shake a couple of your legs, please do. Because I know that when we're sitting, we kind of get a little bit sleepy. So please go take a couple of minutes. We will be back here in 5. Okay. All right, you guys, let's go ahead and find our seats once again. Because you have to pay attention, because otherwise you might get pinged in the head with one of these balls. So we do have a couple of stress balls I'm going to throw out there. And I'm not the best thrower. So you'll want your eyes to be up here. All right. Thank you. I hope that stretch was really welcomed. You were able to practice some of Jan's exercise snacks. That was such a wonderful presentation. We do have Julie Ellis up here ready to rock and roll. But before that, let's see if we can give away a couple of stress balls. You ready? Oh, it was almost. Okay, I told you I am not the best thrower. We'll give out a couple more after Julie's presentation. Okay, so I wanted to give a little introduction to Julie Ellis. She is a physical therapist and a certified lifestyle medicine practitioner through the American College of Lifestyle Medicine. Julie holds additional certifications as a sports specialist, a Brainy X trainer, and a certified strength coach. She taught yoga, Pilates, and sports medicine courses for the College of Southern Idaho for over 20 years, and she has over 35 years of experience caring for physical therapy patients. Yay, Julie is a frequent advocate on Capitol Hill in Washington, D.C. to educate legislators on the effectiveness of PT interventions. I get to see Julie running occasionally outdoors, regardless of weather conditions, with her black lab alongside while she plans for the day ahead. Her family, friends, coworkers, and community are her motivation for staying strong and practicing brain-healthy habits. She loves to share the knowledge of lifestyle medicine with others and adds that a good sense of humor and a resilient attitude are cornerstones, there we go, to reversing disease. So I'd like to welcome Julie Ellis.
Hi, everybody. Great to see all your familiar faces out there today, and I hope I give you lots of good new information. So my promise to you today is we're going to learn a lot about brain health, and we're going to practice some brain health. We're actually going to stand up and be a little bit active, and I want you to leave with 3 or 4 tools to actually start to help your brain health. And I also really hope that you take this information to your grandkids and your grown children, because everybody needs this information. My daughter's 29, my son's 27. I try to tell them, you know what, start early. And it's never too late to start. So let's go through that. So the Center for Physical Rehabilitation is my practice for physical therapy. And the years that I spent at CSI were great because I got to be co-teacher with Jan Mittleider, and she's certainly a mentor for me. I just love her. I'm glad that she segued you guys into this. I am a lifestyle medicine practitioner, and that's why I'm going to promise to you to give you only research-based data, because there are so many misinformation things out there. You know, I spoke to a younger person at my work the other day, and she said, I would never have a handful of peanuts and almonds for a snack because that's full of fat. And I went, oh my gosh. They listed the healthy proteins, and lunch meat was second on there. And these guys are like personal trainers, some of them. I said, come on, let's only go with research. So Monique is gonna follow me. We're both lifestyle medicine practitioners. This is the gold standard. So anything you hear from lifestyle medicine has passed research on and on. So that's what we're gonna go by today, is data and research. So we'll practice some things together too. So we're going to talk about, this is my daughter on the beach. We're going to talk about just staying active and healthy, but one of our most important things is our heart and our brain. What's good for your heart is good for your brain, and you'll hear this from all of us. But having a healthy, resilient attitude and trying new things, like Jan said, is very important. So we're going to talk about the power of mindfulness. That's being present, doing what you're doing when you're doing it. That's always going to help your memory. So if you're distracted or lack of sleep or you're under stress, that's going to affect your memory. So we're going to really talk about the power of mindful thinking, changing your thought process. I see this with my patients all the time. You know, they'll have knee pain, and they'll say, you know, my knee really hurts, but thank goodness this one doesn't. That's positive thinking, right? So that's good. And so it's choice and attitude are a practice. So when you find yourself going down the path of anxiety or frustration, we really can learn to kind of turn that into gratitude and other things, no matter what you're going through. So we'll talk about that, habitual thinking, changing new habits, and again, learning to be present in the moment. So we're going to practice some brain games today that actually help us be present in the moment and stimulate cognitive thinking. So we are going to do a little active, fun thing right now. And the amygdala is a part of your brain that's associated with memory. So although Sudoku, crossword puzzles, and all of that is so good, Wordle, all those games, but they're not very friendly when we're trying to dose our brain correctly. So what the Brainiacs program teaches us, and neuroscience, is that our brain is most open to connecting and improving its thought processes, all those little cables that go through our brain, after 15 minutes of exercise. So although the American Heart Association says 30 minutes of exercise, the good news is the brain neuroscience says 15 minutes of moderate intensity physical activity and then play your brain game. So brain games are fun. So let's do this, and really I'm going to have you just all stand up, and it's going to take us 3 minutes maybe, and spread out from your people a little bit. So what we would do, this is what I'd like you to practice every day. I do it most days when I'm out with my dog. I go for my run. It's about 15 minutes. I play a brain game. So you can go for a walk, but let's just march in place for a minute. Just get that heart rate up. Now, we'd want to really do this for 15 minutes, but we don't have time to do that today, right? And Jan told you about your exercise snacks, but just so, if you can't walk or run, then get on a bike. If you can't do that, get in a pool and swim. If you can't do that, then get on an arm bike. It doesn't matter what you do, but just get your heart rate going till it's kind of like you're a little out of breath, okay? You don't have to be gasping for breath, but you don't want to be talking the whole time. So just get your heart rate going enough. So just for the sake of time, let's say that we've all walked or biked or done something fun for 15 minutes. Now is the time to kind of do a brain game. So I'm going to have you do this in your head. You know, don't speak out loud because it's going to be hard. I want you to start with A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and go down the alphabet. And to make the brain connections, we do it as quickly as you can. And I want you to name a female name and then a male name. So Amanda, Bob, Carol, Dick, like that, okay? And I want you to go all through the alphabet. So you've dosed your brain. Now it's time for your brain game, and go. Just do it in your mind. When you're done, feel free to sit down and relax. This is fun. I see people going, can't think of it. So kind of start to finish up, even if you're not quite done. So go ahead and sit down. So any comments? Anybody have a realization there? That was kind of hard, wasn't it? Another brain game would be start at the end of the alphabet and name a town or a country, you know. Another brain game would be name a fruit, then a vegetable. So it can be words, it can be numbers, there's lots of brain games, but it's great because you can do it while you're walking or while you're dosing your exercise. So that's what's important, because it's not, you can't get out a Sudoku puzzle on the, you know, bike or very well. And also that gives something new. You don't have paper to write it down, so it gets your brain wires thinking of memory. So did everybody think that was a little hard? And especially to do it fast? And does anybody notice when you were doing that, could you worry about anything? Could you? No, because your brain was so busy. So I love these games because if I have a little worry or anxiety going on and it's just, you know, I'm worried about my health of my dog because he's limping, or, you know, is that doing me any good to worry like for that long about something? So sometimes I just will break it up. Or we went to Italy, my husband and I. Tuscany, it was great. The roads there are crazy. My husband was driving, and sometimes I'm just like, I was so, you know, tense about the driving, and then I'm like, I'm just gonna play a brain game. I'm gonna name a country from Alabama to Birmingham, you know. So if you find you're in that psychopath area of your brain where you're worrying about something, play a brain game, because sometimes it will distract your mind and break you up. So I hope you take that with you and tell it to everybody you know, because that's really an important thing. So you know, when you're playing your brain games, you can't really have stress or anxiety at the same time, or worry. Or sometimes, you know, if you're not sleeping or you find you just need to distract your mind, a brain game is a good way to do it. So take that home. I did want to talk a little bit about barriers to exercise, because exercise is such an important part of aging well. You know, as Jan said, we want to age very well and have a great quality and then die very quickly. That's really a good goal for everybody. So barriers to exercise, this is just a plug for your physical therapist. If you have musculoskeletal pain, you know, knee or hip issues, get with your physical therapist, figure it out, and find an alternative type of exercise you can do in the long run. You know, I see some of my patients out there. If you have a shoulder surgery, well, then you need to maybe not run, but you can get on a stationary bike, right? So if you have a total knee, maybe for a while you're just doing arm bicycle work, but find something, get with your healthcare professional and figure that out. Osteoporosis and exercise go very well together. It's just that with osteoporosis, we might dose exercise differently. So we wouldn't have people doing a lot of jumping or hopping or things that would load their spine. So we might have them do cable pulleys instead, or some kind of resistance activity that doesn't load their spine. So again, you can exercise very safely with osteoporosis and with arthritis. You just have to figure out what works for you and make it fun. And Monique will talk a little bit more about fun exercise things to do. And exercise also helps prevent osteoporosis from occurring at such a great rate or earlier age. So it does keep the severity of that down. And then I cannot go without talking about incontinence, because it is very common and it is a barrier to exercise even in 30-year-old women and men as well. It is a women. So in the recent Canyon Echoes, my colleague Sammy Aschenbrenner talked about pelvic health for all ages. And you can go on our website and look about pelvic health. But incontinence is common and doesn't have to be affecting you. So the intervention rate for incontinence is very, very successful. The pelvic floor is a muscle, just like a bicep muscle, and it can be trained. So if you're coughing or sneezing or leaking when you're running or walking, or you have bowel incontinence, your pelvic health therapist can help you train your pelvic floor to make that much better. We've had people go even, because some of our young moms, they're 32 years old, they quit running marathons because they have to wear a pad and they're not wanting to do that. We have seen success rates where people just say, oh my gosh, my pelvic floor is strong now. I don't cough or sneeze anymore. So, and again, it's never too late to intervene with that, but I really wanted to put a plug in for that. We're gonna have question and answer, I think at lunch, where if you want any further information, right? So we'll have some time for that too. But definitely don't suffer with any of those, get with your healthcare professional. So the brain foods is the next thing I wanted to talk about. Again, very research-based brain foods. Did you all get your handout for brain foods? And if you didn't, we can make more, or I can get you one, or I can put it online too. So your handout for your brain foods is that nice colorful one. Thanks to CSI and Jamie, they made those for you. Okay, so in addition to exercise and playing the brain games, we want to eat good brain foods. We want to control our stress and our sleep, and we're going to talk all about that. But I love it that coffee is on there a little bit of red wine, cinnamon, turmeric. The fruits on the brain foods, the apple is not really a brain food. It's good for you. It's good for your heart. It's just that the fruits on the brain food are the blueberries, the raspberries, and that's because they have chemicals that react with your stomach to go through your gut up to your brain and stimulate your brain. So it's chemicals such as phytophenols and cancer and brain healthy foods. So it doesn't mean you shouldn't eat other foods besides this, but these are the main foods that are good for your brain. And notice the proteins, lunch meat isn't on there. And, it's a lot of the fishes, but you can also get protein through whole food plant. Was that me? Whole food plant-based diet. So you can get protein through quinoa and through almonds, cashews. So there's other good protein sources. You don't have to be a fish or a meat eater to get it. So even avocados, although they are a fat, they're a very healthy fat and they have some protein in it. It is easy to get enough protein, and we don't have to overdose protein. 75 to 80 grams of protein is enough for most people per day, and it actually is easy to get that. So I always try to educate the younger athletes that overdosing on protein really isn't that great for your kidneys, and it's not very good for your brain as well, and it causes insulin resistance. So I want to take a minute to talk a little bit about the research-based through the American College of Lifestyle Medicine. Let me see how my time's going there. Oh, good, we're just, so when we talk about the chemical reactions of food, again, what's good for your heart is good for your brain. And then we've got this shopping list. And let me see what my next slide is. Oh, then we're going to talk about sleep. So for a minute, let me indulge here. So have you heard of beta cells? If you study anatomy a lot, beta cells are in your pancreas. So your pancreas really is an important part of your digestion. Okay, so over time, with high fat, saturated fat, increased sugars, and a poor diet, you will injure your beta cells. There's no doubt about it, you will. So a lot of times, okay, so beta cells are an important cell that's in your pancreas, and it helps with digestion. Over time, if you eat saturated fats, a lot of sugars, and generally a poor diet, so think of McDonald's, fast food, potato chips, anything with a lot of ingredients that's not whole food, plant-based. So if you think of the apple's good. The apple fritter is not good. That's not a fruit. So kind of our typical American diet. So over time, if you eat that kind of diet, your beta cells will most likely, with a high percentage, become injured. And that's why you do see people with sometimes abdominal bloating, or they're pre-diabetic because their system is changing. When your beta cells are not working, you become what is called insulin resistant. We need insulin because it lowers our blood sugar. But when you are digesting a huge piece of steak with butter all over it, or a hamburger from fast food, your beta cells work differently. So you become gradually, over time, insulin resistant. And that's why we can reverse diabetes, absolutely, with certain, I said reverse diabetes. I didn't say prevent. Yes, we can prevent diabetes through exercise, correct eating, and all the things we're telling you today. But you can reverse diabetes. It is proven, because when people start to eat correctly, their beta cells repair, their A1C levels go down, and their blood sugars go down. So a lifestyle medicine practitioner, which Monique and I are, if you go and you say, hey, my A1C is a little high, it's 4, 5, 6, we want it under 7. So I was recommended to go on metformin. Well, I would recommend, if you're not exercising and eating a good diet, why don't you do that first? And Monique's nodding with me. So it is proven that you can reverse diabetes. And these other healthy habits also help with preventing dementia and other brain-related disease. Now, of course, some people are still going to, unfortunately have an episode or have those episodes, but we can really decrease the frequency and the intensity in our society of dementia, diabetes, and all of that. So you can repair your beta cells, so that's the good thing. Insulin deficiency, and with time, beta cells can heal and regenerate. So we really want to take that away from our food, so it's never too late to start eating really well. Okay, so now we'll go into sleep. And sleep is such an important way that we can heal our brain. And if you're not sleeping well, there's a lot of online help for sleep, or we really want people to intervene in this. And also take this message to your grandsons and your granddaughters and your grown adults, because sleeping is so very important. It is recommended that we get 8 hours of sleep at least a night, and as uninterrupted as we can. But I want to give you a little bit of sleep science today too, because I hope that when you leave, you just can maybe do 1 or 2 things to give yourself better sleep and to tell other people, because we could spend a whole day talking about sleep. There's people that study sleep, and if you need help, then see a sleep expert. But the main thing that we can tell you about better sleep is that, number 1, there's a lot of resources out there, so use them. Number 2, love the sunshine in the early part of the day. If you like to walk or read, Please get in some sunshine, not to the point where you're getting a sunburn or anything, but 15 to 20 minutes of sunshine early in the day, like before noon, if possible, and maybe a little throughout the day, because that sunshine stimulates your melatonin to not be produced during the day because you need it at night, and it also creates alertness. So sunshine is really important. The office jobs with the computers are just really making a lot of people unhealthy and not sleep well. And I've got a group of healthy physical therapists with me, and somebody said, I'm not sleeping well. I said, you're on your computer too much. You're just, all that blue light, it's just not good for us. We have to get out and, so you've got to get out and get some sunshine and then embrace the darkness. So I wanted to give you another piece of research from the lifestyle medicine. And I was talking to Jamie about this today. Has anyone heard of retinal ganglion cells? If you have, raise your hand. I'm like, Anna, I know you have. Robin has. Monique has. Retinal ganglion cells are cells in our eyes that do not help with vision. They're non-visual cells. They are light sensors. So even the smallest amount of light will stimulate your retinal ganglion cells. And then when that happens, it signals this area in your brain. It's kind of a lot of science, but that little bit of light goes to your suprachiasmatic nucleus. So we call it SCN, suprachiasmatic nucleus. It's in your brain. That nucleus is what tells your melatonin to either turn on or turn off. And melatonin is really important for sleep. So there's a lot of science there, but if you take anything away, you got to avoid that blue light at night, and you have to get in a dark room to sleep. It's really, really important. I know, and this is kind of for me, because sometimes I'll tell people, I don't want you to fall, so have a nightlight on. Well, now with cell phone, because if you're getting up to go to the restroom, we don't want you to trip over the black lab, and this has happened in my house, because he's black and he likes to sleep. I don't want to trip over him if I'm getting up to go to the restroom, because my room is so dark, because I'm sleeping well. Well, have your cell phone at your bed, and I think y'all know you can just, does everybody know how to do that? Just push that little button and go, Siri, turn flashlight on. Yeah, there we go. And then I have my flashlight, and then Siri, turn flashlight off. She did. So maybe a little night or a flashlight, but really try to not even have night lights on in your house where you can be. Because if you sleep or you can use a shield over your eyes, but you really have to get those eyes dark if you're going to sleep well. Okay, so there is, again, a lot of science with sleep, and the eyes and the temperature is really important too. So you want to sleep in a room that, we're still talking about better sleep. You want to sleep in a room that's a little bit chilly. I noticed when we were in Germany, they had really cool individual little down sheets on the side of the bed, so that if you have a partner in your bed, you have your own little cocoon there to sleep in, because they might be warm and you're sharing the covers, and so that was a really comfortable way to sleep. I thought that was a good idea, but you want to make sure if you're you can't get too warm when you sleep. You want to be cozy, but you don't want to be overly warm. So that's why it's challenging. Sometimes if you get hot flashes or any kind of those hormonal changes, you just wake up and you throw the blanket off on that side and you try to get a little bit cooler. But those are some important things for sleep. Okay, let me see how we're doing here. So now I want to talk about something else that's really important. So normal memory changes can occur with age. My oldest patient was 102, he was fun. He had a really good memory. And I asked him what kind of food he liked, and he said pie. But he still lived to be 102. And I think a lot of it is because he just had such a great optimistic attitude. So I think you can get by with not always eating right and not always exercising right and having some bad sleep and some stress, but you need that grateful, optimistic attitude as well. But all this other stuff helps. So memory challengers are strongly influenced by stress and lack of sleep and distracted thinking. So we just did some dual tasking versus multitasking. So dual tasking is when you're exercising, you're doing something physical such as walking, biking, swimming. So you're doing something active, but you're thinking while you do it. So you're singing while you're riding a bike, or you're reading while you're on your stationary bike. So that's dual tasking, and that's really good for your brain. And we already practiced that, right? That's dual tasking. And then multitasking is when you're, oh my gosh, I got to get in the car, but I forgot the grocery bag, and then the dog's there, and then I forgot, oh, I got to go back, and then where are my keys? And then that's the multitasking. That's the distracted. That's the you're not being present in that moment. So you really, it takes a lot of practice to do mindful thinking, and yoga and meditation are some good ways to do that. And just try to find what works for you, because not everybody is great at meditating. And some of us, I'm just confessing that I am not a great meditator, but I can do yoga and be mindful. That works for me. It might not work for you. But you want to set aside a time of day when you're just absolutely enjoying the moment. You're looking at the clouds, or you're smelling the flowers, but we want to create times and habits to be mindful so we can practice that, because it won't always just come naturally. So we can talk a little bit more about that at break, but please put dual tasking into your day a lot, and that's what Jan was telling you too. Take an exercise snack and maybe listen to your favorite song. That would be dual tasking. That's good for that brain. It's relaxing. It decreases your cortisol, and it lowers your blood pressure. Multitasking does the opposite. So if you're stressed and worried, you produce cortisol, and that builds up in your abdominal area, and then it raises your blood pressure. So we can decrease blood pressure by lowering cortisol, and that's dual tasking. And I loved it that Jan did the breathing exercise with all of you, because deep breathing lowers your cholesterol. Your blood pressure, okay? Which cholesterol's a little bit influenced, but if we can learn to lower our body's response to stress, that's going to help us a lot. So now we're talking about stress and the reaction. So I just talked about cortisol and changing your response to stress. So we know that we all have stress. It's there. If your grandson is not feeling good, you're going to feel stress, right? If your money situation became, the stock market did that, it might create stress. We're all going to have stress. We can't ever change that, ever. It's just part of life. It's part of the beauty of life. We're going to have stress. Relationships are going to stress us. Things will stress us. Can we learn? I know we can learn to change our body's response to stress. So instead of, oh my gosh, I'm so worried about my grandson. Oh, what am I going to do? Okay, just, would you feel better? Think of something that's a little stressful for you. And just take a deep, deep breath. And just say to yourself, it's part of life. It's going to be okay. Who told us we're going to go through life and not have pain and challenges? That's normal. It's part of it. But let's try to just take a deep breath And then maybe our cortisol and our blood pressure won't go up. Stress is still gonna be there. It's not gonna fix it one bit. But you're just training your body to react better to it. And go out for a walk and count some good things that are happening. And redirect your mind, because if you don't kind of practice and train your mind to help you out in times when you need it, the best time to train your mind is kind of now when you're relaxed, so that when you need it because you're stressed, you can at least do something about it, because you're going to have times when you need it. So practice it as much as you can on a daily basis. And I hope that makes sense to everybody. But the deep breath, super important. So please learn to change your body's response to stress, because we're all going to need it at some point, and we all have needed it. So Jan went through the diaphragmatic breathing with you. I'm really glad she did. That was on my cue, and let me see. So we're going great with our time. So the diaphragmatic breathing she did, you fill up your belly, you take a deep breath. She had you do the heart exercise, so that's all good. And if you're not in a part where you can do the heart exercise, just do the deep breath, like I had to in the car in Italy, so that I wasn't feeling all that stress from the driving. Because literally in Italy, Jan went to Italy, Tuscany, and some of you guys have been, oh my, yeah, that's right. Oh my gosh. I mean, it's like a 2-lane road, but this car passes, and there's a car coming, but the other car just pulls over their shoulder so the car can pass, and I'm in this rental car with my husband going, this isn't normal in America, but in Italy, you know, everything goes, and then they take a break at 12:30 or 1, and they close all their shops, and they go home and eat with their families. They've got kind of a different lifestyle over there. It's kind of cool. We can learn a lot from them. But when you're traveling or you're in an unfamiliar, stressful situation, you got to learn how to just take that diaphragmatic breath. The other breathing technique I really like, and we can practice this a little bit, is the nostril breathing, because you can be a little bit under the wire on this. Not everybody needs. Now in yoga, we get really into nostril breathing, but nostril breathing is when you close off one and then blow out the other. Breathe in and breathe out. That's kind of a cleansing, and it can be relaxing for people. So you can try the nostril breathing. That's another one. Then the other one I want you to just go over today. I didn't put it up here, but it's the breathing techniques that they use in Tai Chi. So Tai Chi is also another amazing way to learn and flow besides yoga and meditation. Tai Chi and some of those ancient practices that have been going on a long time, because you're flowing. So in Tai Chi, you might be doing a certain movement, but the Tai Chi masters train you to take a deep breath and then exhale long, because when you exhale for a long period of time, and we'll try this together, when you exhale for a long period of time, you completely empty all of that stale and used air, and then you replenish. So it's harder to do than you think. Let's just stand to do it, just at your chair. But what we're going to try to do is we're going to try to exhale for 15 seconds. And I know it's hard. I'll time us. But you can get good at it. So what you're going to do, and I'll time us. I'm going to put my timer on. So we're going to take a deep breath, and I'll try to do it in the microphone. Okay, ready? Everybody, deep breath. Keep going. Keep going. There was about 15 seconds. See how hard that is to actually exhale for 15 seconds? You can teach yourself how to do it. Try it one more time. Just big, big inhale. So we completely emptied. You can sit back down. That's another really important technique to learn. And you'll feel, we don't want you feeling like you're hyperventilating. We want you to train to work that diaphragm, because the diaphragm is so connected. And if we're finding that we're taking shallow breaths, then we're raising our cortisol. So breathing and learning to manage our stress, or learning to have our bodies accept stress better, is very important. So, and then again, the fun or takeaway, and Jan told you this too, and just have fun every day. The last part of lifestyle medicine, besides educating people in exercise dosage, sleep, stress, proper eating, the other is have those people with you, the support. And it's not, many times it's not our family, it's those people in our community that care for us. But you need to find a chance to get out and have fun every day, whether you know, this program here at CSI is so wonderful because you get out with your people to exercise, but it might be a book club, it could be going out to coffee with somebody, it could be your pet, maybe your dog is who you talk to, but you've got somebody who's on your side and can do some supportive listening. So just make sure that you get out and enjoy yourself and have fun every day, but do it with other people. Find people to support you. And we don't need lots of friends, we just need a few important ones, and so make sure you get out there and stay active. So I want to close with hope, because there's, again, so much good research out there on brain health. So there's a documentary out there on NFL football players. I forgot the name of it, and I should know the name of it. Does anybody know the name of that? A study has been done. Monique, do you know the name of that? Have you seen it? Anyway, I'll find it for you. But there's a wonderful documentary. They took NFL football players who had suffered from post-traumatic concussion syndrome, okay? So they'd had a lot of repeat concussion. They call it neuroencephalopathy. So encephalopathy is a pathological brain condition. And they put the former NFL players on a BrainEX type program. So they ate well, they exercised, most of them lost weight, they practiced brain cognitive training, and they did MRI studies prior, and then MRI studies after. And guess what happened? Their brains repaired. Their brains looked better. Many of them were suffering from anxiety and depression, because when you have multiple concussions, you do get changes in your brain and your learning. And they put them on a year-long study, and so many of them recovered, so that was really hopeful. So just a note that concussion in especially our younger population now, concussions are treated way different than they were when we were all, playing football, and they just said, slapped you on the back and said, get back out there and play football. Now we do a lot of post-concussion rehabilitation in the medical world and the physical therapy world. So after a brain event, whether it be a stroke or a concussion, you need to rest your brain, and then you need to dose your exercise correctly. And that brain has a wonderful ability to repair, even after it's already had some injury to it. Because a brain can get injured just like a muscle. We see knees and muscles repair all the time, but we don't talk so much about the brain. But it was called chronic traumatic encephalopathy, CTE. So that's chronic, means over time, traumatic meaning multiple hits to the head, encephalopathy meaning pathological changes to the brain. And so they actually did studies on the NFL players, and they they repaired. So that's good information, and if you, I'll try to find that and post it on that. So go out there, find your people, and have fun. And I think that's it. Yeah, so create opportunities to meet friends. Hello, yeah.
Was it League of Denial, the documentary?
I haven't heard of that one, but it could be League of Denial. Yeah, that doesn't ring a bell for that, but.
Was it a movie or documentary?
I think it was a documentary. I'll find it. Yeah, there is the concussion movie too. And that's the same, right? It talks about the reparative, yeah. Well, thank you, everybody. We're done just a few minutes early. Yeah. So a little break. If anybody has questions, I'd be happy to, we got 5 minutes, so if anybody has a burning question, I'd be happy to answer it. Hi, Paige. No, you're not Paige. Yes, hello. You look kind of like Paige, my friend, from here.
I recently was diagnosed with osteoporosis.
Okay.
Put on Boniva.
Mm-hmm.
I take once a month, so I've had 4 months of it, but I'm just barely over the osteopenia to osteoporosis, but I've always been an exerciser. I walk instead of running, but what are some of the things that we should do and shouldn't do?
Right, so for the question is about osteoporosis or osteopenia and what we wouldn't want to do. So what you'll want to do if you're recovering and you're being treated for osteoporosis is you'll want to get on a gradual weight-bearing exercise program, but not do it just all at once. So I would recommend walking versus jogging or running. And that jogging or running might be down the line. And also it depends on your DEXA scan what bones are affected with the osteopenia or process. It's usually the spine, so we want to avoid heavy impact. But we do want some impact because it's been shown that people who bike all the time and don't do that, you know, a little bit of pounding, their bone density might not be as good as the people who are running. And that's just a general. So you do want some impact. So then also you don't want to start with weight lifting, but you want to start with resistance. So for example, instead of doing a squat, you know, with a weight rack to keep your legs and your spine strong, because then you're loading up your spine, I would recommend that you start with sticks or cables where you're doing resistance across the bone, but you're not stressing the spine. So people with osteoporosis and osteopenia do belong in a weight room doing the correct things, and you start small and then you build up. But swimming and biking are not a weight-bearing exercise. So it's okay to do that, but put some weight-bearing exercise in there. And also stability and balance are super important because that really loads up your spine. So actually the gold standard for balance in the Physical Therapy Association is now 30 seconds. So if you're going to do a balance exercise, you want to do this, and then you want to stress your joints a little bit. And I have people put a cup down. I'm in high-heeled shoes, it's a little challenging. But I have them do cup taps and then cup touches. So if I got a cup, I'm going to put the cup down, I'm going to come down, and I'm going to come down, and I'm going to do that. And then I'm going to come back up like Karate Kid. So you want to get really good at your balance. So showing off a little bit, I do practice what I preach, but this is not enough. Because it's, in my opinion as a physical therapist, because when you fall, you're here, and you need to be able to balance there. So I love Jan's slow walking thing, and step over a hurdle when you're walking, because that will build your balance, like that. But also just do some slow movements like Tai Chi and yoga, because we want to be able to balance, and that's good for osteoporosis too. So, did that give you some, hi, Anna. Did you have a question?
I have a lot of comments.
Comment.
So this morning, I had a session with Sandy Aschenbrenner about pelvic.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you. About pelvic. Oh, that's too much. Can I do
Yeah.
it without?
You can just hold it right here.
Okay, about pelvic health. And I learned something that I had no idea. I've been doing this my whole life. She calls it just in case peeing. I call it prophylactic. So, you know, like before I leave the house, even if I have to go to the bathroom or not, I always go to the bathroom, right? I go to the bathroom before I eat. I go to the bathroom. So I'm using the bathroom in ways that really don't associate, I have to go to the bathroom, right? I'm just going. And so I'm actually not helping myself by doing that. And so obviously, you know, maybe limiting things like coffee and other things that are irritants, good. Water early in the day, good. But not necessarily like, okay, it's intermission at a show. I'm automatically in the bathroom whether I have to go or not. And that actually isn't a good practice, and I was totally floored by that. So I thought I would share with the rest of you, because you probably have some other prophylactic peers in the audience
Yeah.
too.
Thank you, Anna, and that's really true. And we talk about pee and poop all the time in the physical therapy clinic. It's nothing. It's just the pelvic floor is a muscle like any other. So the rule of thumb is when you do urinate, you should be able to have a 10 to 15 second steady stream of urine coming out of your bladder. If you're just squirting, or it's only 3 seconds, that's called prophylactic peeing. That means I'm gonna go train my bladder to not do what it's supposed to do. Because a bladder's supposed to fill, and then you're supposed to have an urge, and then you're supposed to go for 10 or 12 seconds. So if you're running to the bathroom every 2 hours just because then you don't wanna have to have that urge, you're training your bladder and your pelvic floor to do something that we don't want it to do. So yeah, we do a lot of education in the PT clinic on that. So take that home too. Next time you go, count to 10 and see if you're really full, and just practice it. You know, if you're home on a weekend from the office, just try to get your bladder nice and full and then learn how it feels, because we can train that.
Here's a question.
Yes, one more question, and then I think you guys might need a break, right?
How do we, oh, wow, that's good. How do we strengthen our pelvic floor? You've talked a lot about it.
Yeah. So this can be a whole hour training session, but Kegels are a generic name for pelvic floor muscle activation, but what we find is a lot of people do them incorrectly. So we work a lot on pelvic floor muscle activation, and there's a lot of really good research and science out there. So in our PT clinic, we can use little sensors that are biofeedback, and you put them on under your yoga pants, okay, on your pelvic floor, and then you do your contraction, and the biofeedback unit tells you if you're actually lifting in and up, like Jan said, in and up, or if you're bearing down. So if you don't know if you're lifting in and up, and this goes for males too, because male and female anatomy very similar, you want to be lifting in and up so that you're doing a contraction that supports your internal organs, so that you prevent issues like prolapse and constipation. So constipation means your pelvic floor is too tight, and it might need some manual work or more stretching, where urinary and fecal incontinence is you haven't trained your pelvic floor to contract correctly. So that could be like, we could take an hour to do that, but lifting in and up, and you can self-palpate if you can figure out how to do it, or you can use the electrodes, and they even have insertional biofeedback that inserts like a tampon would in a female, and you can see if you're doing it correctly. So you get a little screen. Oh gosh, that's a whole nother, okay. So sometimes you have to both, because you do quick flicks, and a quick flick is a different contraction than a sustained. And then we might start people in supine, which is laying down, and then go to a physio ball sitting, and then we'll train it in standing. So you go through exercise level progressions, just like you would if you were, you know, training for an Olympic sport. You start small and then you go. So you do both. That's a good question, because you have to learn to do a sustained hold and a quick flick for 1 second. So you can train people quick little contraction, you should be able to do 11 to 15 before you fatigue, and there's all kinds of research out there. But definitely, if you're having any of those issues, get with your healthcare person. We have 4 pelvic health certified people at CPR, and they're wonderful. There's so many little tools. There's little rubber things you can sit on, and it's pretty cool.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Thanks so much.
Thanks,
Those are great
guys.
questions. Great information. Hope you were taking some notes or some mental notes so you can put the notes in your phone before you forget, right? But let's go ahead and take our 5-minute break. Go ahead and shake your legs out. And speaking of bathroom talk, go use the restroom if you need to. We'll see you in about 5.
It may take you a minute.
Here we go.
All right, you guys, let's go ahead and find our seats. Let's give away a couple more stress balls. I will try so hard to throw that far. All right, I hope you were able to get a nice break. Oh, watch out! Okay, we have to try that one again. That was really bad. Okay, here we go. Oh, it went right over, woohoo, went right over your head, Mary. All right, so let's go ahead and get ourselves ready to rock and roll. For last but not least, I'd like to introduce you to Monique. Monique Middlecoff has a PhD in exercise physiology from the University of Utah. She is a registered clinical exercise physiologist, a certified strength and conditioning specialist, and is board certified in lifestyle medicine. Monique is a published researcher in the field of sports performance, physical activity, and pelvic floor health. Wow. She is recognized as a higher education teaching specialist and works for a major health system here in Idaho. She lives here in Twin Falls with her husband, Matt, and her golden retriever, Charlotte. Her goal is to pursue health and fitness through evidence-based practice. Wellness comes in many forms, and she seeks to encourage you exactly where you are and challenge you to reach for more. Welcome, Monique.
Thanks, Jamie. Thank you. Okay, do I need to turn on a mic? Can you hear me? Yes. Friends, can I tell you how excited I am to be with you today? I feel like I have some friends in the audience, and it's just so nice to see your face and connect with you. My husband's in the back. Unfortunately, Charlotte didn't make it today. We didn't have a big fluffy friend. But can we just have a moment of appreciation for both Jan and Julie? Didn't they do a wonderful job? The legacy and the history that they have here in Twin Falls, they have just imparted so many incredible gifts to us today, but also in so many years worth of serving this community. But today, I get to talk to you about maximizing your movement, ultimately with the goal of maximizing your life. We want to embrace our days and to have days that aren't just filled with waking up and finishing the day and sleeping, waking up, repeat, but finding the joy in our day, feeling that vitality and energy and enthusiasm to be able to embrace a life that's worth living. And I just wanted to walk you through just a few objectives. I can tell you, I'm a visual learner. I like seeing things, I like holding things, I like touching things. I have a background in academia, so I like slides. So we're gonna do some slides today. So let me just help walk through what we're gonna talk about for the next hour. So I wanna help you to talk about 3 big strategies for movement that we can use to first maximize your health. Because we know that we need our health to be in a place where we're even able to have the ability to maximize your independence and maximize your opportunities. Next, I'm going to talk about some practical steps to engage in physical activity. Now, can I also tell you that I know that I'm preaching to the choir, right? All of us who are here today, in some aspect, are either already moving, have an interest in moving in some way, or are absolutely crushing your physical activity. I know that about you. That's why you're here. So some of this information might be brand new, where you're hearing it for the very first time. Some of this information might be a reminder, and some of this information might be that nugget that we hold on to share with our family, to share with our friends, to share with our kids, to share with someone who needs to hear something in a different way. So I encourage you to listen with different types of ears, knowing that you might be listening for yourself or you might be listening on behalf of someone else too. Oh, I suppose I could just hold this. What if we did that instead? That might make that easier. Okay, when Jan referred to the deflating downhill slide. I think we've all kind of seen some graphs like this that feel pretty dang horrible, if you ask me. So let me just orient you to what we're looking at. So we have muscle strength over here. So we're looking at our muscle strength over our lifetime. We also have age at the bottom. So we're seeing kind of these lines that kind of have dotted lines of threshold of disability and threshold of low physical performance. Now we typically, in younger years, kind of in that first tier, that early life, we really see for the most part that most people are on an upward trajectory. They're feeling good, their muscles are getting stronger, we're growing, our bones are growing, it's wonderful. And that kind of adult life, we see this deflating slide start to happen. And it really depends on how far we slide. Now, if you look at the very pinnacle and we come all the way down to that star way below, that could indicate a very drastic change in our muscular health and performance, where we might have been able to be strong and healthy, do the activities that we want to do, go through the things that are exciting and encouraging and motivating, and now we're struggling to do the very bare minimum basics. Often that means we need help going to things like just going to the bathroom or getting out of bed, showering, changing clothes, some basics. But if we look at way up there at the top, we see a completely different experience in life. Drastic difference. Do we need help? Heck no. Doing life on our own terms, our own way, the way we want to do it. And that's just based on our physical activity alone. It's not any type of big medication or big excitement. It's just based on our movement. And we know that every single person's movement is going to look a little bit different. And that's based on a lot of things. I think one of the things that's really undersold or maybe underexplained is our cultural background. What types of movement did we grow up thinking were fun and exciting and motivating and encouraging? Did we come from maybe a community where we liked to dance or move, or maybe sport performance was really exciting and encouraging? Our cultural background is going to play a really big role in the type of activity that we like to do today. It's also things like, what do you enjoy now? That might look different than what you enjoyed 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 30 years ago. It might look very different. It's also about what's important to you. Is it important to you to have a life where you can feel like you have vigor and vitality, to be able to move side to side? I love that Jan mentioned the difference about moving side to side and front to back. To be able to get up, or whoop, if we trip, we can catch ourselves. It's important to know what's important to you. Now, our physical limitations are also going to play a role, and we can't pretend that those don't exist. Much of our history with injuries or difficulties that we're experiencing with our illnesses play a big role in the type of movement that we like to do. History with physical activity, is this our very first time trying something new, or is this something that we have a long past and a long history? And that our priorities with scheduling are also going to play a role. Now let's talk about maximizing your health. Okay, can you help me? I'm looking at you, can you help me? What are you concerned about with your health? Could you just give me maybe 1 or 2 words of something that just concerns you? What are you concerned about? I need a buddy. Help me out. Yeah, Marilyn. Balance. Excellent. What else? Heart. Yeah, heart. Falling. Memory. You bet. Excellent. What else? Arthritis. Anybody concerned about cancer? Heart disease? Osteoporosis? There's a lot of things that we can be concerned about. Yeah, anything else? Did I miss anything? Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you for helping me with that. I think it's healthy to normalize some of the concerns that we have. Just to know that these things are real. And we can't just pretend that they're not existing, but I think it's really helpful to know, let's use some evidence to be able to speak into some of our concerns, to know, ooh, if I'm concerned about cancer, or heart disease, or osteoporosis, or memory concerns, or whatever it is, let's use some very thoughtful consideration about the things that we can do to either mitigate our risk or eliminate it altogether. Oh, I keep thinking I need to go change the slides. Friends, I'm holding it right here. Concerned about my memory. Okay. So this is very poignant right now. Let's talk about cognitive function. So this is with our brain. I so appreciated the tips that Julie gave us earlier about things that we can do to help improve our brain health and our cognitive function. So things like clarity. Have you ever walked into a room and stood there for a second and thought, why in the heck am I here? What am I doing? Or you go to type an email and you stand there staring at the to line like, who was I going to send this to? Oh, awful. Clarity, creativity, and memory. Short-term memory about what am I doing right now, and long-term memory about what happened last year, 10 years ago. I want to be able to recall those things quickly. What about ability to fight infection? Heck, did we just go through a whole pandemic together where ability to fight infection was maybe at the very forefront of our thoughts for a long time? What about blood pressure and resting heart rate? Or cholesterol? Or insulin resistance and diabetes? Julie, I'm high-fiving you in a big way. I think the message about reversing diabetes is very much lost in our conversations in health. I just so appreciate, because it is so helpful to know that we can not only prevent diabetes, we can reverse it. That's a message not said very frequently. Markers of inflammation, because so often we talk about chronic inflammation. Body composition, not just body weight. Not just body weight. Sometimes we just think about, okay, what's that number on the scale say? And then sometimes it's that extra additional component of what does that number mean about me? We're talking more about our body composition, of how much of our body is made up of our bones, how much of it is made of skeletal muscle mass, how much of it is made of digestive organs, how much of it is made of skin. All of those components really play into our overall picture of health. Also, bone density. So osteopenia, osteoporosis, bone health, bone density, and mental health. I think it's really important that we just have a quick moment to talk about mental health, especially anxiety and depression, because it's so easy to be lonely, isolated, alone, or lonely and alone are the same thing. And we can feel that discouragement and difficulty that can come. And it's helpful to know what can we do that might be able to play a role in some of these factors. Well, I think it's really helpful to know that with our movement and the way that our body moves, that we can play such a huge role in our memory, especially with our short-term memory, mental clarity, and creativity. Why does this happen? I'm the type of person, I'm just gonna tell you right now, I'm the type of person that if someone tells me that something is true, my immediate next thought is, why is that true? I mean, immediately, like I go there every single time. Why is that true? Don't just tell me that it improves our mental clarity. I wanna know why, because then it's going to tell me why that's important for me, and I need to understand it in a different way. So I'm gonna tell you today, because I think it's helpful to know that. So why does it improve our mental clarity and our short-term memory function? It's because when we are exercising, we're getting more blood flow and oxygen to our brain. That's creating a healthy environment for our brain to have oxygen environment inside of those cells. So those neurons not only have more oxygen, more blood flow, they release a protein called brain-derived neurotrophic factor. What does that do? It is a protective protein that helps in our brain to prevent neurodegenerative disease like Parkinson's or Alzheimer's, and also helps us with our memory. It helps us decrease anxiety. Just one bout of exercise, and the higher intensity the better, can increase our BDNF by 32%, one bout. Over time, we see approximately increase of 45%. Friends, I don't know if that encourages you. That encourages me so much to know we have great power in our movement and the things that we do. So even one bout helps. Okay, why do we get improvements in blood pressure and in resting heart rate when we're consistently exercising? What do we get? That's the whole reason I'm holding this little heart right here. So much of what I do is in our cardiac function. And I just think it's kind of helpful to have a nice little visual. So inside of the heart, that we see that we have all of these chambers that work together as this beautifully coordinated pump. Do we have any engineers in the room? Anyone who's an engineer? Anyone who likes engineering? I think the skeletal muscle pump is so incredible. And then our cardiac pump is just absolutely incredible engineering of the way that it's made. So all of these valves send blood one direction, and their whole purpose is to contract down and push blood out. That's it. That's all it does. Contract down, push blood out. And it pushes it through this coordinated tube. So from the right side of the heart into the lungs, it gets oxygenated. From the lungs, it goes into the left side of the heart, and then that's the powerhouse right there. The left side of the heart is bigger because it's gonna clamp down, shoot the blood out to the body. It does that all day long without us trying, without us even needing to work on it. So the stronger that pump is, the less it has to beat, because it needs to get a certain amount of blood out to the heart. And so if we're sitting at rest, we don't want it to be just pedal to the metal, right? We don't want that, gas pedal pushed down if we're sitting in our garage, right? That pedal should only be pushed down to the ground from a gas perspective if we're out on the open roads. So that's why we want our heart rate to be lower at rest. A stronger heart does that. When we exercise, the actual cardiac muscle fibers can become stronger. So the stronger the pump, the fewer times it needs to beat per day. And it also helps with our blood vessel health. So I like to think about maybe like a garden hose. That kind of is a good analogy of something I like to think about. The garden hose is what is connected from the heart to every part of our body. If that garden hose is clogged, thick, or calcified, it really has a difficult time getting oxygen and kind of adapting to our daily demands. It has a harder time with that. So when we exercise, that pressure that we're pushing on the inside of those vessels can help to clear out some of that plaque buildup and calcification. And it really works super well together. I can put this heart down. Does anyone want to see it? Would you like to pass this around? Is this interesting to you? Okay, I'm going to put it right here. Feel free to pass this around. Awesome. Thanks, Jamie. I appreciate it. Okay. Great. Okay. Also, LDL and HDL cholesterol, I just briefly touched on that. We see big improvements in terms of lowering that negative cholesterol and raising that cardioprotective healthy cholesterol, that HDL. Now, we also see that our movement can drastically change our insulin sensitivity. So sometimes when you talk about blood sugar, if you don't have diabetes, we can easily just say like, next, move on, doesn't apply to me. But our insulin sensitivity is really important because when we eat anything, doesn't really matter what it is, when we're eating food of any kind or drinking, our body needs to decide what to do with it. Does it store it? Does it use it? Does it eliminate it? Where does it go? So we find insulin sensitivity is so helpful to be sensitive to what we want to do with that sugar that we've eaten in some way. So if we want to use it for our muscles, it needs to be able to be near our muscles. So we need to get it out of our bloodstream into the cells. So when we're exercising, we actually have improved temporary insulin sensitivity to move that food out of the blood into our working muscle. It's really cool. But we also have more insulin sensitivity that helps us to know where to store the carbohydrate. We call it glycogen. That's the storage form. And we can store it through our entire muscular system and also in our liver. That's a good thing. It's a really good thing. So then you have energy when you need to go do things, when you need to run to the grocery store, when you need to pick up your kiddos or your grandkids or you want to do activities. Now we have available energy. It's very, very cool. So our insulin sensitivity is improved temporarily with exercise and also long-term, preventing or delaying diabetes, and that's also how you can completely reverse diabetes. Okay, can I show you a cool picture? I think this picture is just a very helpful image and representation of how our muscles and our bones can change with age. So if you could picture with me, if I were to take my own leg and saw it off right here, okay? So we're sawing it off and we're turning it over to let you look right down through here, looking at the quadricep, the hamstring, in that cross-sectional picture. So just so we know what we're looking at a gentleman's leg, kind of cross-sectional picture of that image, right, in an MRI. Okay, let's start at the very tip top. So we're seeing a 40-year-old male triathlete. So this is someone who's really putting in a lot of work. triathletes. Ooh, pretty impressive. Okay, at the very tip top. Now, can you direct your attention to that white circle in the center? Okay, that's the femur. So it's a femur that has that cross-sectional picture. I want you to look at how large that circle is. So we're looking at a pretty dense bone, right? That's a pretty dense bone. It's pretty great. Around that, we're seeing just a little bit of that darker circle, and then surrounding that entire thing is muscle mass. Ooh, quadriceps, hamstrings, adductors, abductors working together. And you can see kind of how little white tissue we have around the very outside of that. That's the adipose tissue, or we could call that the fat tissue that's right under the skin. We need some fat tissue, right? We don't want to eliminate all fat tissue. Fat can be very helpful and protective for us in its right quantity. So this is kind of ideal, right? This is sort of dreamy, heaven's sakes. Let's look at that exact same thing, but all the way now down at the bottom. We're looking at a 70-year-old triathlete. So right at the bottom, let's look at that bone first. Let's look at that diameter of the bone. What do we think? Does it look just about the same, better or worse? Yeah, just about the same, because we know, because of something called Wolff's Law, that where force is applied, bone will be laid down, and where force is removed, bone will be reabsorbed. So it's really helpful to know that force is the stimulus that lays bone down. It doesn't matter our age. It is harder, definitely, when we get older. I'm not pretending that it's not. But we can see that our bones can maintain density very late in life. And it's encouraging to me to see it. Let's look at the muscle tissue on that bottom, right? We're seeing very pronounced muscle tissue. And if anything, we might have even less fat tissue or adipose tissue right underneath the skin. Okay, now let's look right up in the middle. What do we see here? Is this a disaster? Not necessarily, not necessarily. But we see a very different picture of health here, right? It's just a very different picture of ability. It's a very different picture of strength. And it's a very different picture of bone density. So let's start by looking in the center at that white circle. What do we think? What happened here? Yeah, we didn't have a lot of force. So the bone didn't have any stimulus to lay down new bone. So it started absorbing that bone back into the body, leaching calcium for other things. So the bone starts to shrivel and weaken. When we look at that muscle mass in the center, we see a lot of marbling, right? If you kind of think about maybe like a steak or something that has a lot of marbling, has fat throughout the muscle tissue. In humans, we don't want that at all, right? We don't want intramuscular fat. That's not a really healthy way to do it. We don't want a lot of it. But in this image here, we see quite a bit of it. And then we also see that subcutaneous fat, or the fat that's right underneath the skin, and a pretty large portion. Now, this is not a disaster to say, oh, throw in the towel. It's a heck of a day. We didn't do it. Bummer. Right? This is an encouraging thing for me to see, oh, there's opportunity to make some significant changes on the way this person is functioning, moving, experiencing life, the opportunities that they have available to them. So it's helpful for me to see what's possible, and it's also helpful for me to see what is likely if we just sit and do nothing. Okay, we can definitely, with exercise, reduce chronic inflammation. And we know that chronic inflammation is one of the starting spots, or that initiation points to so many different challenges downstream. It's because we know that exercise serves to temporarily increase inflammation, which is why we don't want to do hard exercise on hard exercise on hard exercise on hard exercise on hard exercise. We need to be able to be thoughtful about the ways that we use the exercise stimulus, and then the ways that we rest and sleep and recover. It's really important to do that. Okay, we talked about this already, but we can improve bone density because of Wolff's Law, which I think is encouraging. Muscles pulling on the bones, our body exerting force, maybe pushing and pulling on cables, maybe pushing and pulling with that force on the ground, pushing back through our bones, laying down new bone tissue, giving us those healthy bones to give us the ability to move around. And then we also see that we can improve muscle strength at any age. Do you know that if you're 100 today that you can still build muscle strength? Do you know if you're 102 you can still build muscle strength? We have research that demonstrates that that's possible. So sometimes I think it's easy to feel like, well, I didn't do it when I was young. Whoops, that's okay. right? All we can do is start today and say, this is something I'm gonna prioritize because I know it's gonna change my experience in life. At any muscle age, we can change it. Now let's briefly, I'm looking at the time, let's briefly talk about anxiety and depression, because I think if I tried to tackle the whole topic of mental health, we could be here all day long. I know you wanna leave. So, if we're talking about anxiety and depression, we know even one bout of exercise, even just one, as long as you're enjoying it, can help to increase feelings of pleasure. It can help to increase energy. And energy and decreased pleasure are two of the hallmark experiences that we have with depression. So even just one simple bout can give us a sense of increased pleasure and increased energy. It can also decrease that temporary anxiety that we feel. I love the idea of doing something like a brain game in addition to that, because it can take our mind off some of those either repetitive thoughts that we can get stuck in that pattern that can be really repetitive and concerning, and just temporarily focus our attention away so that we can get back into that healthy state. We see that especially in the environment we're in right now, if you're seeking care for depression or anxiety, there's a very large waiting period, up to 6 months. It's something that the health system is very aware of and really working on. But we know in the meantime that that can be really problematic while we're waiting. And I think it's helpful to know that there's some things that we can do right now or other people can do right now that really do make a difference and can really help us feel better. Now, what do we see? We see moderate to large benefits on depressive symptoms in comparison to no treatment. And also, I think this is maybe even more encouraging, is that often the responses are the same. Like psychotherapy and exercise will often exhibit a very similar response, and it's additive, that if you add them together, it's even better. Let's say you're already on antidepressive medication. Do you know it can help even more? Adding exercise can make it even more effective. And sometimes there are barriers that it does make it difficult to get started or stay engaged if you're not feeling well. And I know that there's some barriers with that. But I really encourage you to even start with something very simple like walking that can really make a difference on how we feel. Even better if we can do it outside. Now let's talk briefly about maximizing your independence, because there is something that's special about doing what you want on your terms. Have you ever had an injury or maybe an illness or something that you're working through where you feel like you did not get to do what you wanted on your terms? Oh, it's difficult. Have you ever broken an arm or had your arm in a sling or something where you just feel like you have to now modify everything in order to get, do the things you want to in life? Well, it can really make a difference when you're able to live with autonomy and, a self-efficacy where you can not only feel confident that you're going to be able to do what you want to do, you practically have the tools, the balance, ability, power, cardiorespiratory fitness where you can do the things you want to do. Boy, I think that makes a difference, to do it on your own terms. So to do that, we need to have a few tools in our toolkit. And one of those is agility, which is the ability to change positions quickly. Now we know that if we slow down, we slow down. And if we slow down, we slow down. And if we slow down, we slow down. So it means that at some point in time, we gotta speed it up just a little bit. We want to make sure that we're starting with some gentle things so that we're not doing too much too soon. But we need to be able to actually change directions quickly, especially when we know that most falls do happen to the side. If we're only used to stepping forward and stepping backward, we're very vulnerable. And it's nice to know where we're vulnerable because that gives us an opportunity to do something different, to make a difference. Balance is something that I think most of us kind of have on the tip-top of our thoughts. Balance really matters. That's that feeling of being able to be secure and stable, whether it's on one foot or whether it's on 2 feet or whether it's jumping to the side or coming back to center. That balance component makes such a big difference. And it's easy to talk about it, right? It's easy to say, oh, we should all work on our balance. And it's harder to put that in practice. But there's some very basic, simple things that we can add into our life that really make a big difference. And I really encourage you that sometimes we can overcomplicate things, and it can feel so big and so hard to implement that it's difficult to know kind of where to start. And we want to choose some more simple starting spots, because then it's more likely that we're actually going to do that. Flexibility is moving through that full range of motion without limitation. And so that limitation could be maybe pain or discomfort. We want to move through those ranges of motion that are going to help us accomplish the things we want to in the day. If all we're doing is just typing at a computer, and we just need our elbows at 90 degrees and our hands to tip, tap, tap, tap. I do a lot of computer work. Tip, tap on the computer, and our knees to sit at 90 degrees and our hips to sit at 90 degrees. We don't need a lot of flexibility. But heaven's sakes, I do not want my life to be limited to 90 degrees of flexion in my knees and my hips, and that's it, right? I need to do more. I need the experience of having a body that works. So it means I need to do more activity throughout the day that challenges the range of motion. Let's also talk about strength. So we want to be strong enough to lift and move. Now, how do our muscles gain strength? If we just think about it and we say, oh, I really, really hope we get stronger today. It doesn't work, right? Our thoughts have a very small component of our muscle strength, right? Actually giving ourselves that mechanical challenge is what causes those fibers to have a small tear, and then we repair with good nutrition. Those fibers come back stronger, and then our muscles are able to do more. So if we never provide that stimulus of something that feels challenging to us, we're as strong as we're going to get. Today is it. Today is the strongest you'll ever get, unless you do something that is challenging to your muscles. So we need to challenge them on purpose to be able to lift, move, carry, do the things we want to do. We need to challenge balance, flexibility, agility, and strength. Now, there is a big difference when we're talking about our opportunities and the things we want to do in the future. If we just look at our movement as like a checklist, like, ooh, okay, check my walk off today. I checked my flexibility off today. I got it done. Let's move on to the next thing. Now, checklists are awesome, and I use checklists every day. It's a different feeling when we're just going through our checklist of, I got through it and I'm done, versus I am working towards something that's driving me to something important. Now, I have nieces and nephews that I love. And one of the things that's very important to me is anytime they want to, I want to be able to lift and carry them. I want to spin them around. I want to be the fun aunt. I want to do all that. That's important to me. So that means as they grow in size, I have to be strong enough to be able to lift and carry them and twirl them around and be the horsey that rides them around, do all things. It matters to me. That drives me different than saying, I did my strength training today. I love strength training, so it's fun. But when I know that there's an end in sight, to say that's what I'm working to, or maybe I'm working to go to Italy and I want to be able to carry my luggage and move all around, it's going to drive me differently. So when we're thinking about our opportunities, I think it's helpful to work towards something specific, short-term or long-term, that's going to drive us forward. Now, I don't know if anyone has told you this today, but in case you haven't heard, you're not too old. It's not too late. And you're not done. You're not done. There's so much to do and see and experience and feel and taste and have as part of your world. And you're not too old. You're not too old to do it. Sometimes we can have that existential crisis at any age, right? I'm 36 and sometimes I lay in bed like, have I done enough? Like, have I done enough by now? Am I behind? And we can feel that at any age. But it's so helpful to know, no matter how old you are not too old. It is not too late. And you have so much left to do, so much left to do. So I like to think from a health and physical perspective of, what are you able to do right now? Can you physically do everything that you want to do right now, just right now? And would you like to be able to continue to do those things? Maybe getting out of bed in the morning, showering the way you want to, putting on clothes, getting ready, going to the activities that you have in your day, greeting friends, seeing family, doing all the stuff, events, whatever. If you want to continue doing that, we know from that very deflating slide that we saw at the very beginning that if we don't do anything, that's not going to be able to continue to happen for most people. We have to do something different with our body to be able to get a different experience and raise that star from the bottom, whoop, up to the top. Okay, oops, I'm sorry. Oh, I'm moving on too fast. Okay, what would you like to see? I haven't seen everything that I want to see yet. I've got more to see. What would you like to experience? And what do you feel like you might be missing out on right now, regardless of how your body is feeling? How would you like to feel? Is there anything that you want to taste that you haven't tasted yet? Is there anything that you want to touch or feel that you just haven't yet? You're getting ready to, but haven't yet? When we maximize our movement and we have our fitness in a place where we can have the opportunity to do those things, it sets us up for a completely different experience in life. One where we can look back and say, wow, I am so thankful for the things that I was able to see and do and experience and taste and touch, versus one that said, oh, I wish I would have. And I get to experience that almost every day with patients who wish they would have. And I would love to just give you that reminder of, I don't want that experience for you in any way. I want you to be able to look back and say, I did it, I'm so happy, and not look back with regret. Now, movement helps you to explore. I think living in Idaho, one of the most incredible things is the way that we're able to explore in our environment, whether it's the Canyon Rim Trail, or seeing the Perrine Bridge, or going up to Auger Falls, or maybe going down into just the different opportunities in Pillar Falls and the things that we can see and experience. If you haven't done that yet, friends, I encourage you to do that. We have so many beautiful trails and systems that allow you to do that. They also have really cool benches that if you happen to get tired, you can sit and take a little breather and then continue on. Okay, we know that when we're consistently working on our muscular system, that we see improvements in power. Now, power is one of the least talked about components of fitness that gives us some of the best maximal opportunities to improve the way that we experience our world. Because power is what is strength over time. So it's fast strength. So it's the difference of me doing maybe a squat position that might take a certain amount of strength, but if I needed to do that a little bit faster, we might have a little bit of a jump in it because the speed is a little faster. So power is what takes us up staircases. Power is what helps us to move quicker through different periods of time. Muscle diameters, will grow when we increase some of those fibers or those type 2 muscle fibers that gives us enough power to be able to tackle things that we want to tackle. Climbing, moving, lifting, jumping. And we see big improvements in energy, in our overall energy, when we're consistently working on muscle strength and muscle power, reducing that feeling of fatigue that a lot of us feel. Why do we have that? Because we have improvements in our mitochondria. Do you remember this from 8th grade biology? Can I ask you real quick? Do you remember, what is mitochondria? The powerhouse of the cell. I feel like everyone learns that in 8th grade. It's like the 8th grade biology moment. Powerhouse of the cell. So one thing we know about mitochondria, it's how our cells have energy. I like to think about mitochondria as the energy factory. If we have more factories, we have significant more amounts of energy over time. So it's really exciting. We also have new blood vessel pathways to get oxygen into the muscle when we exercise regularly. Okay, we hear we need more exercise. My questions are plenty. My questions, what kind of movement should I do? How much movement do I have to do? How will it help me? I don't feel well enough to move right now, or I don't enjoy exercise. There's so many things that we can ask, and there's so many important answers here. So what should we do? I encourage you to start with movement you enjoy. Now, I know we're preaching to the choir, right? Most of us are already moving. So if you're not already moving, I encourage you to start with movement that you enjoy. But if you have maybe family or friends that aren't consistently exercising, would you give them this advice too? Start with something that you enjoy. It's so much more likely we're going to stick with something that we actually enjoy. And we know from a minimum dose, what's the bare minimum that I can do? Any, and I mean any exercise is better than none. 2 minutes a day, worth it. I only have 5 minutes at lunch, worth it. I can only get in a 10-minute walk, worth it. I can only do 15 minutes of cycling, worth it. Absolutely worth it, right? Anything is better than none. But I tend to be a very studious student, so I want to know, tell me what I can do as bare minimum. I want to know what I need to do to get an A+. What's the A+? Tell me what that is. Let's talk about that together. So we know any exercise is better than none, but this is an A+. This is when you get absolute nailing, crushing your exercise, giving it an A+, this is what it looks like. I just took that picture and whoop, blew it up here. We know that adults should move more and sit less throughout the day. No surprises there, right? We also know that any activity is better than none. We know that. Here's the important parts. Oop, let me skip forward here so we can see it. At least 150 minutes a week, which is 2 hours, 30 minutes a week, right? That's the important number. For everyone, all of us, that's an A+, right? That's what we're aiming for. Of moderate intensity aerobic exercise each week. Now let's say I like to work a little bit harder than that. Some people do and some people don't, no problem. If you're the type that likes to work a little bit harder than moderate, you don't need to do as much. 75 minutes is the target that you want to aim for if you want to work a little bit harder. That vigorous intensity, 75 minutes a week. Now the second part is the part, as Americans, that we miss it. Oh, we were just talking yesterday with my brother-in-law, who is a physical therapist. We were just talking that a new study came out. Only 21% of Americans are hitting both components of the recommendation, the aerobic component and the strength training component. That's the part we need to work on here, is the at least 2 days a week of activities that strengthen muscles. The last part, part number 3, for those who are 65 and older, is to improve balance by doing activities to improve balance 3 days a week or more. That's an A+. That's what it looks like if we're hitting for that A+. And I think it's so helpful that we're seeing images and people and examples of others who are able to do that on a regular basis. Because sometimes when we hear things that are really difficult or big sounding, we think, how is that practical? We want to see practical people who are able to do that. I like to just use a simple guide that just helps me to know how to break that down in a meaningful way. What does it mean if we're looking at maybe practically getting in aerobic exercise and practically getting in strength training? We want to look at how often. We want to look at the magnitude of work. We want to see how long we need to do something, and we also need to know the type of physical activity performed. So we use this acronym called the FIT principle just to help us to have that type of information. Now I took the 2 components and I broke them into 2 parts. One of them is blue, this is the aerobic activity, and one of them is in yellow. That's the strength training component. This is where most of us struggle. So for the blue part, the aerobic exercise, we want to get in 1 to 6 sessions per week. If you're the type of person that says, I want to do this 1 time, awesome. We're hitting 150 minutes. That's a big chunk at once. If you're the type of person that says, no, I don't want to do it all at once. I want to break it up. That's me. I'm that person too. So we want to do anywhere between 1 to 6 sessions a week. We want to do somewhere between moderate and vigorous. It should feel a little bit like a challenge, like we're working, either walking at a brisk pace or working at something that's a little bit challenging. We want our time to be a total of 150 minutes. For me, it's helpful to think of five days a week, 30 minutes. That's doable for me when I think about this number. That's doable. What type? Anything you like. Anything you like. It would be dishonest of me to stand up and say, you need to be running 5 days a week. It would be dishonest of me to say you need to be biking 5 days a week. The literature doesn't support that. It really supports the type of aerobic exercise that you enjoy is going to work well if you work hard enough for the right duration. You can really pick it. It's beautiful that we have such ability to decide. Any aerobic activity works. Let's talk about strength training. We know that we need 2 or more sessions a week. Just personally, I love strength training. I do this 5 days a week because I love it. It helps me. I feel better when I do it. But we know the bare minimum is 2, right? So we need to hit 2, working all major muscle groups. There's no determined time. We just need to hit all of our major muscle groups. And we know that we need to work at a moderate intensity or greater. That's an A+. So how will it help me? We talked about it at the beginning, but there's so many ways that it helps us. It helps with memory, creativity, longevity, independence, managing pain, giving us joy, friendships, encouragement, social support, stress outlet. Ooh, we need that in our life. And physical confidence, self-efficacy. It helps in so many ways. So move in the ways that bring you joy. If you like playing pickleball, awesome, me too. If you enjoy swimming, I hate it, ugh, no thank you. But if that's your enjoyment exercise, I really encourage you to do it. If you like playing tennis or walking on the canyon rim or biking, move in the ways that you enjoy and you're gonna stick with it and do it for so much longer. Now, if you wanted to take a picture of something, this is the thing I encourage you to take a quick picture of, because this is kind of the template of what we need to do. We need to have 5 or more days a week, working at a moderate or vigorous intensity, 30 minutes a day, any type you like. That's how we could practically get to the 150 minutes. You can pick how you do that, but I think that's helpful. And then we know 2 or more days a week here for strength training at a challenging pace, no set time, working all major muscle groups. Think, okay, well, Monique, thank you for telling us the outline. That's not very practical. Let's make it practical. Let's figure this out. So we want to start where you are and use what you can. If you have a whole gym available to you, awesome. I love working out at the gym, and I also love working out at home, and I also love working out outside. We can do this in so many ways. So whether you have no equipment available or all the equipment available, you can do this. So I have 3 simple schedules just to kind of make this a bit more doable. And these are just simply examples. So if you find that this works great for you, awesome, please take it and use it. And if you find, oh, that's not exactly what works for me, we can change it up and do that too. So in this first example, I just chose a person who might enjoy walking. So we used walking as the exercise that we're doing on Monday, on Tuesday, on Thursday, on Friday, and Saturday, just a 30-minute walk. It's a bonus point if we do that walk outside to get kind of the experiences of working out in nature. And that walk can just be with a friend, it can be alone, it can be with a dog, you can take maybe a podcast or an audio book, but this is someone who likes to walk as their major form of exercise. Now, we built in 2 days of strength training, so we did that on Monday and Thursday, just to give it a little bit of a break up here. And then for flexibility and balance, we have some stretching and balance exercise after walking. Now, for me, it helps me to see how can I make this work in my real life and not in someone else's life. So I have just another example. This is the example number 2. And this is maybe for someone who likes a bit of variety. Doing the same thing every day doesn't really sound fun. We want to break it up and do something a little different. So maybe we like biking one day and walking another day. So I put in here that we would do maybe a 30-minute bike ride on Monday, on Tuesday and Thursday, but on Wednesday and Friday, we're gonna walk. Maybe we have a friend who wants to go for a walk. This person might also prefer being more social and taking some classes. So I built in here taking a strength class on Wednesday and also a yoga class on Saturday. So this might be someone who enjoys maybe trying new things or enjoys doing things with a friend or having that different environment. We also have some balance exercise and some stretching built in. Now, my last example is just a little bit more detailed for someone who likes to manage more of a complicated schedule. So if you're the type that likes to manage a few extra things, maybe we have 30-minute bike ride. This person loves water aerobics. I do not like water exercise. I just hate wearing a bathing suit and exercising and doing the whole thing and then getting wet. That's my personal preference. If that's your thing, I encourage you to do it. I know so many people love it. But the Tuesday is that 60-minute water aerobics class. It's a beautiful way to get in our aerobic exercise. And then also have walking, biking, and then this person has strength training 3 times a week. They might enjoy it. It might be something that they want to do. Now remind me, what's our bare minimum? How many times a week do we want to do strength training? Twice. You are good listeners. Very studious. Bravo, A+. Okay, so twice is the bare minimum. And then we can work on our stretching and balance exercises that can just be a short portion of our day. Sometimes when we think about adding exercise, we think, oh, that's gonna take the whole day. It doesn't have to at all. It can be just something simple, even while we're brushing our teeth. So you can move alone, you can move with a friend or a dog, or you could ask for help if you're in that spot to say, ooh, I'm not sure what to do. I don't know exactly what to do. Ask for help because there's so many people. So we know that with our cardio exercise, so many things qualify. I just wanted to put this up here as just an example so that you know what checks the checkbox. What puts us in that aerobic exercise where we could say, oh, maybe I don't like water either, and I'm not really excited about doing water aerobics, but you know what I do love? I love rowing. Or you know what I really enjoy is I really like hiking. That sounds so fun to me. We can give ourselves so many different options to meet that requirement. There's really not one thing that's going to be much better for us than anything else. So you could pick anything that fits in that category. Also for strength training, this is where most of us really struggle because it's more confusing and it's more complicated. So a lot of us tend to skip out on this. But we can use dumbbells, resistance bands, strength training machines, body weight exercises. There's a lot of different ways we can do this. Sometimes if you've had maybe a bad experience in the past doing something like a PE class or something that just was not your cup of tea, it's easy to think like, oh, I don't like that. Like, oh, that's not really for me. And maybe it's just something that we haven't tried other options yet and haven't found the thing that we think, oh, I like that. I don't really like doing choreographed dancing like Zumba. That's not something I feel comfortable and confident with. But wouldn't it have been a shame if I tried that one time and then said, but you know what, I really don't like exercise. Just maybe we haven't found the thing yet that we really like, so I encourage you to try different things just in case you haven't found the thing that you love yet, because it works in so many different ways. But when we look at what we want to work on, we want to work on the major muscle groups. So we don't want to skip anything. Anything that's big, we don't want to skip it. Our chest, our trunk and abdomen, our back, our biceps and triceps, our thighs, our hamstrings, our calves and legs. We want to work on all of those major muscle groups, and we find significant, profound responses in the body. Now, what type of activity does not help? What does not help? There's actually some exercise that does not help. And I think it's helpful to know activities that you're shamed into doing or activities that you shame others into doing doesn't help. Doesn't help at all. We also know that activities that are painful, that doesn't help us either. But we have to differentiate the difference between what is work and what is pain. If we're doing something and over time we think, ooh, hello, that's tough, that's not the same experience as sensation of pain. Pain is, ooh, something's wrong, right? And sometimes if we're at the beginning of exercise, it's hard to differentiate the difference between pressure, tension, work, and pain. And the quicker we can figure out the difference between them, the better we're going to be. And sometimes that just takes a little bit of time. We know that activities that are upsetting aren't going to help us. So if we get to maybe an experience or a group or something where we feel so much social anxiety or so much discomfort that it's just not helpful, we know that that's not going to be the thing that's going to help us thrive long term. That's not it. And we know that activities that are beyond your physical abilities aren't it either. If we were to go do like a 1,000 pull-up challenge, I think most of us would end up in the hospital at some point, right? It's helpful to know our parameters of where we want to start and where we want to go to. And it's always better to start low and go slow rather than to overestimate our abilities and end up in a crisis. So start low, go slow. Okay, what if you don't feel well enough to exercise right now? And for a lot of us here today, this might be more of our friends than ourselves. If we don't feel well enough to exercise today, that's absolutely okay. It might be maybe a short-term thing like a cold or dealing with an infection, but it also might be something significant. And I just want you to know there are a whole host of people who have dedicated their lives and want to help you. Just that simple. They just want to help. So this could be primary care doctors, physical therapist. It could be a sports orthopedist. It could be a registered dietitian. It could be spiritual care or a therapist or counselor. It could be anyone beyond this list even, who might be able to help and make a difference. Sometimes we can get so stuck in the train of thought of like, well, I'm a little bit stuck. And it's helpful just to be able to partner with someone else who can link arms with us and say, ooh, we're walking right on out of this. Like, we don't have to stay stuck and paralyzed. We can do some really important, wonderful things with just a little bit of help. Now, this is my sweet Charlotte. Jamie at the beginning mentioned that I have my husband Matt and a sweet Charlotte. This is my precious little Charlotte, who I love so much. I think it's helpful to know that just having some social support can help so much, whether that's a family member, a friend, a dog. It can help prompt us into doing a little bit more activity than we might do by ourselves. And then also, we find very profound effects of being in nature. And this doesn't mean that you need to go out into the remote wilderness to find benefits. This might be something like walking on the canyon rim and looking at the canyon. That for me, it's just a beautiful time. I really like to do that. And soaking up the beauty of our environment. It might be just walking outside and seeing trees while you walk to the neighborhood mailbox. There's so many different ways that we can participate in nature that really give us vitamin D from the sun. It gives us that opportunity to breathe fresh air and get oxygen in our lungs, to help us see the world in a different way and change our perspective so that we're not just seeing the same things every day. It reminds us of our place in the world. It's just really beautiful. Gives us energy and boosts mood. I'm almost finished. I'm 2 slides to go. I wanted to give you a resource to get started, and I have a really clear, what is that, like a qualifier maybe on one of these recommendations. So this book over here, I read this year, and it's called I Will Make You Passionate About Exercise by Bevan James Eyles. Now, to be clear, if you're currently exercising and you have a good routine, this is not the book for you, truly. It's really not. But if you're at the spot, or someone you know is at the spot, where you're really having a difficult time making exercise a consistent part of your life, this is a beautiful book, and it's a beautiful recommendation that you can give to your friends as well. What I think is so helpful about this particular book, and it's really inexpensive on Amazon, is it gives some practical steps for behaviors to walk through some baby steps of change, to try something without judgment and to see how you feel, to do something and then have a reflection back, to have a weekly meeting. There's some really wonderful practical tips in this book that I really, truly found profound, and I really recommend it. But again, if you're currently exercising or you've tried a lot of exercise and have a good routine, it's just not the book for you. It's not going to be that helpful. I think it's just helpful to know that in advance. The second part is a workout for seniors over 60. One of the things I love about this particular guide is it has beautiful pictures and helpful pictures. It's less than $20, and I think it's one of those books that would be a resource for years to come. It gives you ideas and clear pictures of exercises for balance, for core strength, for working on all those major muscle groups. And then I can also say, in addition to these 2 books, there are resources across our valley with wonderful people, incredible instructors. I know we have instructors here in this room that are teaching exercise on a regular basis. Engage with them, meet them, spend time with them, go to different businesses in town, check out different environments and places that you can go, because we are really blessed with so many wonderful resources here in Idaho. So let's just take a quick summary. So how do you like to move? If you're not already exercising consistently, I encourage you to start right there. If you like to dance, that's your thing. If you like to walk, that's your starting spot. If you like to bike or play pickleball, I encourage you start there first. Don't make it more complicated than that. Identify the activities that best fit your preferences and abilities. And then past that, keep it simple. More complicated is not better. If we have an extensive, complicated plan, it's actually less likely that you're going to do that long term. So keep it really simple and use that as your anchoring foundation that you can build on later. Aim for both cardiovascular and strength components each week. I just like to help remind myself at the end of every single week that, that we've gone through kind of the checklist to make sure, yep, did we get our 150 minutes of cardiovascular exercise in? Check. Did we get our 2 days a week or more of strength training in? Check. Yes. So you can feel that kind of A+ satisfaction that you feel when you've had a job well done. You've done everything that you can do that really makes a big difference. Any exercise is better than none. If you ever feel that you're in one of those days where you're beating yourself up for what you couldn't do, shouldn't have done, whoopsies, I ate, whatever, we know any exercise is better than none. So take that 5-minute walk if you only have 5 minutes. Take that 2-minute stand up and move around, shake it out, do whatever you need to, because it's gonna make a difference. And then lastly, the benefits of sticking with consistent exercise are so profound. I find it really discouraging and disheartening anytime we talk about exercise as just an ends to a mean for weight loss. It's horrific, because to me it feels like if you go buy a car or a brand new car, and then all you want to talk about is the seat heater. Like, oh gosh, the seat heater. Like, we've missed the whole point of the car. The car is what transports us from here to there. It gives us the experience. The whole bit, the car is the exciting part. One little baby feature is such a minute little thing, and we can get excited about weight loss. But friends, don't just exercise for weight loss. It is the least exciting, boring part about the benefits that we get from exercise. Exercise is transformative. It changes our health. It changes our independence. It changes our opportunities. And we absolutely cannot just reduce it to a mechanism for weight loss. Okay, I think that's it. Okay, if you want to connect with me, you can do so in so many ways. I do work for St. Luke's. I work as the manager of lifestyle medicine for both the cardiac and pulmonary clinics. I also work as the clinical ethics lead for the hospital, so if you need to reach me there, this is my hospital information where you can reach me by email. And also, I did put up my phone number here, and I'm just asking you if you would just respect that. If you need to reach me, I absolutely encourage you to do so, but I know that, that you're gonna respect that and use that in a healthy way, so thank you for doing that. Also, if you wanted to exercise with me, I do run a fitness program called Fitness for Us, and we have Movember coming up, which is just a 30-day program I run in the month of November. And if you're interested in that, I'm happy to tell you more about it too. But that is it. Thank you so much. I know I went over a few minutes, so I'm so thankful for that. But Jamie, I'm so happy to take questions at this time if we have time for it.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Monique. Man, her zest and vitality is just contagious, isn't it? It's like, oh, wow. Thank you for that knowledge and that information. I know that your brains are full from all three wonderful presenters. Jan, Julie, and Monique filled us up. Our toolboxes are full. I hope that you will take this knowledge with you and act on it. That's what it's all about, right? It's to do something with this knowledge, not just store it up here or lose it somewhere up there, but to act on it. So please do that. We are all aging actively and well, and we can just do a little bit better. I think the message was just try 1 or 2 things that you learned today and see what you can do with that. Okay, thank you so much for coming. We really, really appreciate the attendance today. I thought it was fabulous. There is a light lunch out that you can go enjoy, mingle. Questions with Monique and Julie can be done out in the lobby as well. So please do that, take your time. Instructors for over 60, I will meet you on the south side of the lobby to get some little prizes for your groups. So don't forget to pick those up before you leave. Thank you.